It's time for Twit This Week in Tech. What a great show. Patrick Norton is here, Brianna Wu, both in studio. We're going to talk about the Baltimore City Government being held for ransom. Hackers probably have your social if you ever bought a house. And the first gaming handheld with a crank. It's all coming up next on Twit.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Twit, This Week in Tech, episode 720, recorded Sunday, May 26th, 2019. Everybody loves furry Pikachu. This Week in Tech is brought to you by Casper, a sleep brand that continues to revolutionize its line of products, introducing the new Casper Hybrid mattresses, featuring their award-winning foam layers, but now combined with springs. You're going to love them. Get $100 off select mattresses by visiting casper.com/twit1 and using the promo code twit1 at checkout. And by CashFly. Give your users the seamless online experience they want. Power your site or app with CashFly's CDN and be 30% faster than the competition. Learn more at twit.cashfly.com. And by Capterra. Find the right tools to make an informed software decision for your business. Capterra is software selection simplified. Visit Capterra's free website at capterra.com/twit. It's time for Twit This Week in Tech, the show where we cover the week's tech news. We brought a very estimable panel in to the studio today. Patrick Norton is here.
Hey.
Techthing.com. This week in computer hardware, and apparently the Joliet prison. Now, I'm glad you brought your souvenir
This
mug.
is from your coffee mug collection, sir. Mine says, "Don't die stupid."
Even better. Even better. Great to have you, Patrick, my old friend from the Screensavers.
Oh, wow.
Also, in studio, I've never met her before. I've only done many shows together, Brianna Wu, candidate for U.S. Congress in the Massachusetts 8th. Hey, Brianna!
Good to be here.
So nice to see you.
I know, this is surreal.
How do you do this without Frank moving your microphone in plate?
Right. We just show up. He's over in San Francisco. So.
You were doing a campaign event.
I was. We obviously raise a lot of money from the Bay Area because this is the area that understands tech policy.
Silicon Valley. And they really want somebody in Congress that understands
tech.
They really
do. Absolutely. So
good. Did it go well?
Yeah, it went really well.
Nice.
Standing room only. So that's a good thing for a
that's
campaign
really good
event.
News.
Yeah.
So last year you were primaried out.
Yep.
This year, same candidates?
Same candidate, professional team.
We don't like this guy, by the way. The more I hear about him, the less I like him.
I'm not a fan, except
You're running against him.
I am.
He's a Democrat, but
he's a Democrat, but he's not a great Democrat. We actually raised more money from individuals than a 20-year standing member of Congress did last quarter.
I think AOC's triumph in New York is a template because she also beat a well-known Machine Paul.
Absolutely.
No one gave her a chance.
Yep.
And she trounced him.
That's absolutely true. Yeah. And then the party kind of circled the wagons and changed the rules. So it's hard for, incumbents to come in.
Large corporations have been paying millions to elect our people for years. How dare people try to represent the people at a local level?
All right. Well, there are a lot of tech stories that you will have something to say about that Congress can get involved in for sure. But you said as you were reading the rundown, how kind of blown away you were by the number of breaches we have this week.
It's been a rough week for cybersecurity.
Terrible. The biggest one of not only of the week but of the year. I was reading Brian Krebs. Krebs on Security does a great security blog. On Friday, he tweeted, "Stand by, massive breach news," and he broke the story of First American Title. Now, I don't know if you've ever bought a house, but if you have, chances are pretty good that the title company, the company that kind of does the title insurance, maybe the escrow, was First American Title. They are, I think, one of the biggest, if not the biggest. They're a Fortune 500 company. They have 18,000 employees. Their revenue, $5.7 billion last year. So it's a big company. They had a little feature on their website. I think a lot of companies have, actually. I know, a lot of sites, when you go to your account, it's got a site name, First American hackers.com/?= and then there's a long number, your account number. And one of the favorite things hackers like to do is decrement or increment that, right? Well,
up by one, down by two.
if I am 734944572, let's try 73. Turns out you could in fact do this with the links that you were sent with your title information. This would be your home application, including your social security number, your credit history, your driver's license image, your home address, your email, your birth date, any possible kinds of information, the kind of information you give a title company when you buy a home. And by the way, not just the buyer, the seller. And it turns out that record, you could decrement and decrement all the way down. Brian went down to 0000075, which was a title record from 2003. And then incremented all the way up. And that's where he gets the number 880,000 records. I mean, the worst breach since Yahoo.
Yeah.
And of course,
OPM was pretty bad.
OPM also, but that one went to the Chinese, right? So they never put it on the dark web. So, hey, you're pretty secure. It's just the U.S. government and the Chinese government.
And,
it's pretty safe. We don't know who, if anybody accessed this information because it's been there since 2003.
Yeah. I think odds are pretty good.
Yeah, because it's a common ploy, a common technique.
Yeah.
It started, the really sad story. As soon as Brian called them, they turned it off. So it's fixed. But the sad story is that a developer named Ben Chauvel found it, and he said he tried to get a hold of First American. They just blew him off. So he ended up calling Brian, and Brian has a little more clout and was able to get them to pull it down. Yeah. But that's about as bad as you can get. 885 million plus documents.
It also includes things like routing numbers, bank
Ooh, I didn't even think of that, but you're right.
Yeah.
It would include bank information.
Tax information. It's all out there. I mean, I've long said this. I don't think the free market can solve privacy because neither the buyer nor the seller wants to pay for it. So, in a situation like this, I don't know why they shouldn't face lawsuits for this. This is so unbelievably egregious. And how this could go on this long without anyone, code auditing the system or taking a serious look at it. And the thing that really gets me about this story, Leo, is if you look at their Twitter account, they're radio silent on it, or at least they were the last time I checked it. And, it's just, if you're going to put everyone else's information at risk with this, they're just keeping their head down and waiting for it to blow over.
They also might simply be so completely gobsmacked. It's interesting, right? Because, one of the other big stories this week, of course, the attack on Baltimore. Right. Baltimore's been shut down for like 3 weeks and climbing.
Yep.
From a ransomware attack, but we'll get into that in a minute.
Yep.
But half of what's going on right now, when a lot of these attacks come out, is the first thing they have to do is figure out if anything's been leaked. Can they trace it? Can they find information that has been out there? They circle the lawyers. And this is,
you could look at your web logs if you had them going back and see when those pages were accessed and how many times they were accessed, and if they were accessed a long time after the transaction, that kind of thing. That would be a giveaway.
Right.
Assuming the crack team that put together the website also kept on top of their logs. And I apologize if anyone out there is part of that crack team.
Oh, no. The CEO of First America was paid $8 million last year. He could take the hit.
Competency and taking care of your customers has nothing to do with executive compensation. Let's get that straight right now.
I love the statement released by First American. You might sound familiar. At First American, security, privacy, and confidentiality are of the highest priority.
Unless we have to do anything.
We are committed to protecting our customers' information.
As long as it doesn't cost anything.
We will have no further comment until our internal review is completed.
Because our lawyers are freaking the delete expletive out.
Your information is important to us. Please hang on.
We can't make the $5.7 billion a year we make if you don't continue to give us staggering amounts of information. They also could be trying to figure out, can they fix it? What else is wrong? They probably have pen testing teams in there screaming through everything they can.
Right.
Because now that the horse is out, they should probably rebuild the fence in the barn.
This was not, the sad thing is really, maybe they were also penetrated, but this didn't require a spear phishing attack and an advanced persistent threat. Just a web browser pretty much is all you need.
Yeah. So, what I think is so important about this is as I've started running for office,
liability, please.
Liability, absolutely. We need liability laws on this. But I've talked to so many people that work on the InfoSec teams at these large corporations, and they've talked to me about why these disasters happen. It's typically not because the people in charge of the security architecture are inept or they don't care. The truth is they're not supported by upper management.
So they'll go to management and say, we got a problem.
Correct. And they get blown off and they don't have the resources. This is why I feel it's so critical that we up the legal liability there. When it's more expensive to do this wrong than it is to do it right, that's when you'll see them take this seriously.
It all comes down to the bottom line.
Of course it does.
Although putting a password on each of those pages wouldn't have been that hard.
No, it wouldn't have.
I think the code monkey could have done that in a day. In Baltimore and beyond, this is the New York Times today. This is actually a great writing from the New York Times. Credit to Nicole Perlroth and Scott Shane. As you know, Baltimore for 3 weeks now has been shut down by ransomware. It's frozen thousands of computers, shut down email, disrupted real estate sales, water bills, health alerts, and other services. Here's the bulletin they put on the City of Baltimore webpage. The City of Baltimore is currently unable to send or receive email. If you need assistance, call us. The ransom, $100,000. City officials, to their credit, refused to pay it. Mm-hmm. And a side note, I just read an article, I think it was on Motherboard, that a lot of the companies that get hired to remediate ransomware, what do? They pay the fine. Ooh. They add 10, 20% for profit.
Really?
Job done.
Oh.
So do not pay the Bitcoin ransomists, okay? I'm just saying. But here is this is the great writing, again, from the New York Times, from Perlroth and Shane. Here's what frustrated city employees and residents do not know. A key component of the malware that cyber criminals used in the attack was developed at taxpayer expense a short drive down the Baltimore-Washington Parkway at the National Security Agency. This is...
Woo! Peace dividend!
This is Eternal Blue. You remember this Shadow Brokers leak of a bunch of NSA exploits some years ago? NSA never really explained how it happened, although if you piece it together, it sounded like an NSA contractor decided to take those files home with him. So not so he could steal them, but so he could work at home. He was running a Kaspersky antivirus on his machine. One of the things Kaspersky does is quarantine threats. Whether intentionally or not, Kaspersky recognized that the guy had a bunch of really good hacks on his machine, so they quarantined him and sent him back to the home office, which happens to be in Moscow. The Russian secret police apparently have people working at Kaspersky. It's unknown how close Kaspersky is to the Russian secret police, but they certainly have access to those quarantine files, and the rest is history. The thing I said on the radio show today, and I think this, and I wanted regular people here, not geeks, is this is the problem. The NSA, the top spy agency in the United States, the most security focused, these guys really know their stuff, couldn't keep this stuff internal for long. And you want us to put backdoors in all the encryption.
Thank you.
Right?
Right.
If you can't keep these secrets, are you going to keep the backdoor secret?
You can't. Well, you couldn't even if you didn't. So
what that means is any weakness you put in any software is eventually going to be used by bad guys against the United States.
And this is, Leo, this is where I really want to give Microsoft credit, because they really took a risk in moving forward, and they came out.
We should say Eternal Blue is an SMB exploit that takes advantage of an old version of SMB, Microsoft's file sharing.
Sure, technology. Absolutely. But their legal team has come forward, and they've had a lot to say about the NSA stockpiling zero-day weapons, and talking about how we need to have a national ban on them doing that. Because what happens is these 0 days are out there, it prevents people from patching it, it. And rather than kind of using this for cyber warfare and being able to use it to get their own way, we should have them working proactively with Microsoft, with other architecture to plug these holes and address it, because it's exactly as you said. It's just going to get weaponized against the American people.
From the same article, Eternal Blue, the SMB exploit that allowed these malware programs to be wormable, so that it's one thing if you get one computer in the Baltimore City Government with ransomware, but what happens is uses Eternal Blue to worm its way to all the computers.
Yeah.
Eternal Blue was so valuable, former NSA employees said that the agency never seriously considered alerting Microsoft about the vulnerabilities and held on to it for more than 5 years before the breach forced its hand. The breach was 2 years ago, so for 7 years that SMB1 flaws existed.
Right.
So, but Brianna, let me
please
counter you though. Clearly, national warfare, struggles, espionage is all going to become cyber-based, right?
Absolutely.
That's where we're headed.
Right.
If our NSA our NSA is not allowed to develop tools to do cyber warfare, then aren't we tying both hands behind our back?
I think it's a good argument for that. Have you read Countdown to Zero Day about Stuxnet Source? It's a
great book.
It's a fantastic book, and I won't go into all the details, but I will say the technical wizardry that they used to basically shut down the centrifuges in Iran, it was brilliant. It's certainly that kind of cyber warfare is going to...
No lives were lost, but it shut down their nuclear
kind
capability.
of an optimal solution, but there was a lot of collateral damage because this worm was spread all over the world. So, look,
By the way, if you fire up a Windows machine that is not patched for Stuxnet, you will get it.
Yes,
because it's endemic on the net. It's just constantly out there.
Absolutely. So this isn't all or nothing, Leo, right? We live in a dangerous world. We do need to take this seriously. But in this particular case, the NSA was unable to keep this safe. And I would invite you to...
They kept it safe for 5 years until somebody who deserves to get the "There is no patch for human stupidity" T-shirt decided to do work from home.
Fair point.
If you're working at the NSA, you don't take... I'm pretty sure. I mean, I could be wrong. Rules may have changed. I don't know anybody at the NSA that well, but I got to spend a couple, a day with the NSA. They have some pretty... They're uptight
smart.
People.
They're
really uptight. And they have rules in place, and I'm pretty sure...
those rules didn't stop Edward Snowden, and then several years later did not stop...
Well, there is no patch for humans. That could be the short version.
Right.
I mean...
Until the government is not run by humans, I think we got a problem. I feel like we're not going to give up developing these tools.
Right.
But I think there is an analog here, and that is biologic weapons. So there is also a lot of incentive for governments to create biological weapons. But we have I don't know if it's Geneva Convention, but we have an agreement among governments that they won't do it. And the reason is these pathogens that probably do exist in labs, I'm thinking, should they get out, would wipe out the population of the country.
Right.
So there are restrictions on this kind of warfare. Maybe we need... Is it even possible to get people like Iran, Saudi Arabia, North Korea, China, Russia to agree to some sort of cyber moratorium?
I think if you're talking to people at the NSA, if you're talking to InfoSec experts, they are talking about this. The United States cannot go it alone and solve these kinds of problems. If we're talking about truly...
we would be unilaterally disarming if we did.
Exactly. So we've got to do exactly what you're talking about. Form alliances with other nations,
We're
form
so
standards.
good at that right now.
Well, it's not great, but we can change that. We can change that. So, the truth is we just can't isolate ourselves. We need to engage with other people.
It's so tempting to say, well, screw it,
but this is all.
But
this
we
is
got
all.
to try, right?
This is all one giant mess. For example, Dianne Feinstein hates cryptography fundamentally. I don't know how else
she
to say
doesn't get it.
I don't know if I think she totally gets it, but her priorities in terms of, national security, that's much more important to her than maybe not every bank account in the planet getting hacked.
Right.
I mean, it's you talk to people at different levels of government. I mean, one of the fun things about DEF CON is who you run into drunk at 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
And people who are at the front lines have a very different perspective from people at home. And if somebody spends their entire day going, yeah, well, we get hit by this, 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 and people are constant. The whole cyber warfare thing, there's little skirmishes going on all the time. There's all sorts of mayhem going on.
I just read an article about there's a little island off of Manhattan that we do practice cyber attacks on the grid. And it was just in the Times today, I think. And every 6 months, they bring down the grid and see how fast we can get it back up again on this island that nobody's allowed to visit. It's a private, military installation.
I just want to bounce off what you were saying with Dianne Feinstein. She voted to reauthorize the Patriot Act. She voted to she's very against cryptography. In my experience, I think it's faulty thinking to think any particular political party is going to come to your rescue on this issue. Yeah. When I talk to people...
I'm not talking about a political party. I'm talking about one of the senators from the state I live in.
But there are a lot of
diametrically opposed to the companies that generate the majority of the revenue.
Absolutely.
In her state.
And I think
a lot of the citizens.
I'm running as a Democrat. I think it's time for us to have a conversation saying we have not been good on this issue. And the axis of conflict here isn't one political party versus another. It's informed versus uninformed.
Yeah, and then we just need to figure out how to separate all the special interests.
And it's not just in the U.S., though, and that's the real problem. Because Eternal Blue was first used by the North Koreans. They used it to bring down the British hospital system, the national health system. That was the first use of it. They brought down German railroads, 200,000 organizations around the world. Russia used it with NotPetya. So North Korea had WannaCry, which used Eternal Blue. NotPetya used Eternal Blue. It was aimed at Ukraine, but it ended up leaking out. FedEx cost them $400 million. Merck cost them $670 million. So these companies could reasonably lobby and say, look, we got to do something. But I think you also have to convince these countries. And I think it's a case of you have to say the damage, the collateral damage to your problem is, how do you convince North Korea? Yeah, here's the island, by the way. Have you ever been to Plum Island, Patrick?
No.
Off Long Island Sound?
No.
Well, you can't go there.
Good.
And it's where DARPA runs war games for a massive cyber attack.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. It's owned by the Department of Homeland Security. Major attractions are a defunct lighthouse and a center that studies infectious animal diseases. Strangely, though, their power goes out every 6 months. It's an exercise.
I suspect they fire up the generators before they run the war
really shouldn't
games.
kill the power on the bovine.
Not a place to kill the power.
No. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Well, I think they probably warned them ahead of time. So every 6 months, DARPA ferries over experts on a ferry, on a boat.
Yeah.
Who work to jumpstart a dead grid while warding off a series of cyber threats. At least we're wargaming this stuff.
Yeah.
We're preparing.
Yeah. I gotta tell you, Leo, I've had some scary conversations this year with people.
Have you? Kind of secret, deep background
Well,
stuff?
I would just say sometimes you try to talk to people in positions of power about this, and you expect there to be a certain amount of technological literacy. And my experience has been it's not quite there.
Here's the other issue. North Korea is like the Battlestar Galactica. Right?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? They've cut themselves off from modern technology.
Yep.
So you can't really say to them, oh, you got to watch out. WannaCry could bite you too. No, it can't.
Oh, so we just do an EMP above the country.
No, don't say that, Patrick. People will think you're serious.
Although they
That
come not
also wouldn't
serious.
affect them.
It wouldn't affect them.
That wouldn't affect
They're
them.
the Battlestar freaking Galactica. They're using phones with wires and dials.
We'll talk about EMPs later.
Will it break those too? Does it break a fine Western Electric phone made out of hard rubber?
That's a really good question.
I bet it doesn't. No neutron bomb will blast that out of the sky. So the Department of Homeland Security last year issued a dire warning that state and local governments are getting hit by a particularly destructive malware that is relying on Eternal Blue. Microsoft, this is the Microsoft Center, the Eternal Blue Tracking Center. Notice they have one of those fine Surface Hub.
Mostly I just like that at least one person's wearing like a camouflage thing.
You can't see me. I'm invisible right now. You don't know where I am.
Well, it's...
This feels kind of staged. I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
It looks kind of staged, but it's funny, right? Because there's a blog that I love to read called Granola Shotgun, and what he talks about mostly is how things are evolving in communities and why big box. He walks through the sort of how towns and cities got to where they are with the ex-urban production, and then how big box stores are dying, and this sort of endless series of rings.
I understand.
And that's what it's coming to. They can barely run their own infrastructure without having to deal with upgrading.
Welcome to Petaluma, where the housing office is open 4 hours a week.
Oh.
Good luck getting a permit.
Oh, my gosh.
And the streets are decaying because nobody has the money to fill the potholes. And this is a typical exurb small town, I mean, I think this is. I can't imagine what the cybersecurity is at City Hall.
But the answer is
it's like North Korea. They don't have a network.
Hello?
I mean, the answer is obviously that there's not going to be any, Leo. And this is why there's very clearly a federal role to play in securing this. If the NSA is going to stockpile these weapons, we need to have a process to be able to get emergency patches out. And that's why I do think we need to be funding free and open source software for local city governments to use.
Maybe that's one solution, is to stop using proprietary software.
It's a nightmare. It locks all these.
OpenSSH was a mess for, we found out it had been a mess for years.
Fair point. But as I've gotten to know every single, independent government, they get locked into a different contract with another vendor. Then you've got technical debt and you can't swap it over. This is clearly a case for federal leadership. And the last thing I would say is, I forget what year it was exactly. Was it 94 that we closed down the Office of Technology Assessment
that's the
in
saddest
Washington?
Story. And
it makes no sense. It makes no sense.
This was a very well-run agency that was helping members of Congress understand technology. Now they've got nothing. Now they've got Jack Dorsey.
Yep.
In an interview in March, Michael Rogers, the admiral who was in charge of the NSA during the leak, said this. Well, I don't think he said well, but he's thinking it. If Toyota makes pickup trucks and someone takes a pickup truck and welds an explosive device into the front and crashes it through a perimeter into a crowd of people, is that Toyota's responsibility? The NSA wrote an exploit that was never designed to do what was done. Yeah, no.
Yeah, it was.
It's exactly what it was.
I kind of think.
Microsoft's response, Tom Burt, Corporate Vice President of Consumer Trust, said you can't compare cyber weapons to pickup trucks.
Or the NSA to Toyota.
Yeah. These exploits are developed and kept secret by governments. This is exactly what you were saying, Brianna. For the express purpose of using them as weapons or espionage tools, they're inherently dangerous. When someone takes that, they're not strapping a bomb to it. It is already a bomb.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is more like if somebody finds a bomb outside, like on the front lawn, that fell off the NSA truck and then welds it onto their pickup truck, then I'm kind of getting the analogy, but it's...
So there is, I didn't know this, but at the end of the article, last year, Microsoft, along with Google and Facebook, joined 50 countries in signing on to a call by French President Emmanuel Macron, the Paris Call for Trust and Security in Cyberspace to end malicious cyber activities in peacetime. So 50 countries signed it, but who didn't sign it? China, Iran, Israel, North Korea, Russia, and the United States.
Right.
So the biggest actors,
the ones that are most likely to get into a scrap,
are not participating. And I understand why, because they say, but we don't want our hands tied behind our back. Of course.
It's not how I would go. It makes us more unsafe to not be working with other people.
Yeah.
So,
I think that there is an eternal optimism in these agencies that no, this time we'll keep it to ourselves. This time nobody's going to get it.
It's going to be fine.
This time it's going to be fine. I really think that that's how they think, right?
Yeah.
We've figured it out. We've locked it down. You don't worry. It's going to be all right.
More often it's more like, wait, what happened?
Wait,
what? He did what? Excuse me? Like,
for some reason, I'm not sure exactly why. So Baltimore city officials, because they couldn't use their system, started using Gmail, and then Google shut them out. It's because apparently the security systems detected the creation of several accounts in a short period of time and shut them down. But Google is happy to say we've restored access to the Gmail accounts for the Baltimore city officials. It's because they created 1 million accounts all at once. So just next time that happens to your city, slow. Just make one every 15 minutes.
I think that's a valid edge case.
I think it's an edge
yes.
case. Yeah. All right. Oh, there's one more I got to do. This is an example of why we're screwed. So the Air Force is investigating the Navy.
I saw this. I couldn't believe it.
For a cyber intrusion into its network. This is a memo obtained by the Military Times. And apparently, a Navy prosecutor decided to embed hidden tracking software into emails sent to defense attorneys, including an Air Force lawyer involved in a high-profile war crimes case of a Navy SEAL in San Diego. The tracking device was an attempt to find out who was leaking information to the editor of Navy Times, a sister publication of the Military Times. It was also sent to Carl Prine, the Navy Times editor. So the Air Force is treating this malware as cyber intrusion on their network and have seized the Air Force Individual Military Council's computer and phone for review.
It's like that Spider-Man meme where they're both pointing at each other.
The Air Force is accusing the Navy of cyber warfare.
Oh, gosh.
There's no hope, Brianna. You sure you want to run for Congress?
I do. I have to say there, though, like, trying to figure out an information leak for military, use, that's not an unreasonable use of that kind of technology to me. I mean, that's high stakes there.
They also define what it is.
Yeah.
Because this could be just as benign as something that calls like
a lot of an invisible pixel or
right. I mean, a lot of like, for example, a lot of companies or PR companies or sales teams, they actually automatically track the email they send out, so they know if you open it, if you respond to it. It's incredibly common.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people use that.
Yeah.
I want to be there for that. I want to be there for the JAG argument. Let's take a break. Great to have you, Brianna Wu, visiting our fair coast, running for Congress, U.S. Congress, Massachusetts 8th. Brianna, of course, is a famous game developer, but we don't call her Space Cat Gal anymore.
My team made me change that on Twitter.
It would not be appropriate.
Yes,
She is at Brianna Wu on the Twitter. But do you do any technology stuff? I mean, are you still running that company?
I wish. I hope we get a chance to talk about PlayDate today. I saw that. It uses Lua. I want to learn that so I can
Lua's
code on
cool.
it. Yeah.
Lua's really a cool language. Yeah.
It seems very easy to do.
Yeah, it's kind of a nice scripting language. A lot of stuff. Lightroom is written in Lua.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I didn't
a lot
know
of
that.
stuff.
Wow.
That you see that a lot where these low-level these programs are using internal scripting languages because then it's easier to it's like Zork.
Right.
You don't want to write that from scratch. You create the Zork interpreter language, and then you write it.
I don't even know where to go with that.
It's a DSL, a domain-specific language, and Lua didn't. I don't think it started. Maybe it did start that way. But.
We're thinking about putting out a game. We have it nearly done, basically about information warfare.
Oh,
it's basically simulating.
See, here's an opportunity.
Yeah.
Will they use the crank on the Playdate?
Yeah, well, not with the Playdate. This would be for iPhone.
That
But it's
would be
basically it's about information warfare and paid trolls and botnets and all of that to kind of say, hey, this is a serious problem. We're we have it written. It's just getting it out there.
I signed up immediately for.
I did
Playdate.
too.
Yes.
It looks so good.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second.
Yep.
We got 3 Playdate. We could have a Playdate. Oh. Such a good name.
It'll just be 2 hours of us cranking the handle.
So our show today brought to you by my mattress. I love Casper. I've loved my Casper for years. Casper is a sleep brand that was the first to realize that the markup mattress stores were making was more than 100%. Mm-hmm. And the only benefit was you could lie on the mattress for 5 minutes in the broad daylight while a salesperson looked at you like, what are you doing? Take your shoes off. Let alone really trying a mattress for what it's intended for. I'll let you fill in that sentence. But honestly, they said, we don't have to do this. We could sell direct to consumers. Some bright boy said, well, yeah, but wait, how are they going to decide whether they like it? And they came up with this brilliant plan. Here's the new Casper mattress. I'm about to open it. They said, like my jammies?
Yes.
Then they said, well, what if we let people try it in their house for 100 days? This is the brand new hybrid mattress collection. Now, rewind this for a second because I'm going to tell you something and you're not going to believe it. So Oh, wait a minute. Don't rewind it. Oh, that is comfort.
Look at that.
Isn't that nice?
With your LL Bean sheep slippers.
You recognized those, didn't you? They're
have a
wicked.
pair.
They're wicked good slippers.
I have those too.
Yeah, they're so the best. So let me tell you something about this mattress. This is very different because in the past, Casper mattresses have combined foam and a variety of materials.
It's really creepy.
He's dead. Look,
oh, he's not dead.
I got the kitty.
Oh.
Kitty liked it too. That's Sammy. Okay, I really thought they would fast forward this. I didn't think it would go this slow. I'm just saying.
I don't know what channel this is.
What is going on? Who is that guy?
The police.
Why does he have a mattress in his foyer? So the deal is Casper is now making a new kind of mattress, the hybrid mattress collection, which combines the pressure relief of their award-winning foam. But get this, it has springs. What? Durable but gentle springs. Doesn't mean they still can't fit it in that surprisingly compact box. It doesn't mean you can't open it up, just like I did, and open it, and you take it out of the bag. They must have one of those giant vacuum machines, you have for like when you got a lot of meat. Only it's the size of a mattress.
I have the small one.
Yeah, I have the small one too, but I want a mattress-sized one. So they suck all the air out, so it's really compact. The new hybrid mattress collection, I have to tell you, is the best Casper I've ever slept on. It offers luxurious comfort and resilient support, elevated lift for active support, durability for all body types. Here's something I really like. So on some mattresses, when you're trying to get out of the bed, I don't know if you've noticed this, the edge is not stiff. And so the mattress, as you're getting out of bed, collapses under you, and you
sort of slide off.
Yeah, it rolls you out. So they've got enhanced edge support. It has a firmer perimeter. So if you've ever had that experience, this supports you as you're getting out of bed.
A security tub?
It's like, yes, you have an edge. You could press up again. I don't know how to describe it, but it's awesome. You get added lift from the springs. There's still open cell foam, so it sleeps cool, which is really important. You don't want a hot mattress. The coils are, of course, individual, so the air can flow around them, but also you can sleep next to somebody and each have your own kind of comfort zone. Yeah. I think this is the best mattress they've ever made. It's so soft and comfortable. The only sad thing is we already had the Casper, and foolishly, I told my brother-in-law, we're getting one, but you could have it. So by the way, it's gone. He took it within minutes. Joe and Debbie it's gone. I said, where'd it go? Oh no, they took it. So now I want to get another one.
You gave it to them.
Well, I have the original Casper, which I love. I did give it to him. I didn't know how much I'd like this one. And have you tried the glow light? Have you seen that?
No.
That's so cool. So it's not a mattress. It's a light Casper sells.
Oh.
That is, it's hard to describe, but you can lift it up off. It's not connected to anything. It's got a battery, and it glows, and it will dim down as you're going to sleep, and then in the morning it slowly comes up like the sun. Slowly comes up. If you have to go to the bathroom, you pick it up and you shake it, and it gives you a very dim glow that you can get to the bathroom and back.
Oh my gosh!
It's hard to describe. It's really anyway. I think this is this is like a side business, but that just shows you they've got engineering to spare. Yep. A lot of brains, because you know why they got brains? They get good night's sleep. If you don't get a good night's sleep, you're not thinking solid. So here's the deal. You can get $100 towards select mattresses when you go to casper.com/twit1. Use the promo code TWIT1. I should say, I didn't mention the most important part. You got 100 days to sleep on this. If you say at any time in those 100 days, I want to go back to my old mattress, they come and get it. You don't have to fit it back in the box because unlike Patrick, we don't have mattress-sized vacuum sealers. So they come and they get it, and they refund you every penny, so there's literally no risk, 100 days to sleep on it. I love this new hybrid. Try it out. I guess that's what you say. Free deliveries and painless returns in the U.S. and Canada, a 100-night risk-free sleep-on-it trial. You got to love Casper. They knock it out of the park and continue to do so. Save $100 towards select mattresses by going to casper.com/twit1, entering the promo code TWIT1 at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Thank you, Casper. Thank you for a good night's sleep. There's nothing like it. And I thank you for supporting us by using that URL. Casper.com/twit1, promo code TWIT1. So you brought up, so we can talk about it.
Yes.
The first gaming console with a crank. This is, you know,
I love this.
First of all, it's from Panic Software, who I have loved for years because they do Transmit and Coda. They're a Mac software company.
Yeah.
Not a hardware company, a Mac software company.
And then came Firewatch.
Firewatch, yeah.
What's Firewatch? They do that? Is that hardware?
Yeah, they made Firewatch.
It's a game.
Yeah.
Just go home and buy. When you're done with the show.
Oh, it's a game you can
Firewatch.
play. It's a software.
So it's not like a very competitive like shooter game. It's a story-based game that
I never played it.
it's slower and it's
meditative.
It's very meditative.
It takes place in the Wyoming wilderness.
It's worth your time.
Oh, okay. So they obviously, like Casper, they have engineering cycles to spare. So when they're not writing $50, $60 FTP software, which, by the way, Panic Transmit, it's a must-have.
Very much worth it.
It doesn't break.
It's like...
Wait, are you saying developers should make money so that they can eat and continue to provide excellent software?
Who would think you could, you have every computer comes with FTP built in.
And yet,
I bought it. I love all of their stuff.
But part of what's crazy about PlayDate is the idea there's the console. It's like the handheld, whatever we're calling it. The widget.
Yellow. It's a Game
It's
Boy.
gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's
black and white screen.
$150.
It's kind of e-ink, I hear.
Yeah,
and they're going to do a flight of. It's a high resolution black and white screen. Just let that settle in for a second. Where do you even find a high resolution black and white screen?
With the price, which is not cheap, by the way.
It's $150.
Okay, I guess that's kind of cheap.
I mean, you drop that at dinner how many nights a week?
Yeah. Tonight.
but it comes with, they're calling it like a season or a flight of 12 games.
Yeah.
One a month for a year.
Yeah.
Is that right?
It's like one a week.
You get them all at once?
Yeah, they're going to release once a week. They already paid people to develop these little mini games.
Some are long, some are short, some are experimental, some are traditional. And you want to write it because it's in Lua. You could write one.
I thought it would be a lot of fun.
It would be fun. Now I want to write one.
One of my complaints about the video game industry, I work with Unreal, which is a giant, unwieldy engine. I really feel like with creativity, limits really help you make a better product. Like I always think about that. Have you ever seen Dr. No, the original James Bond movie?
Yeah.
That great first set in there where Dr. Strangways comes in. It's got that great light on him, that terrifying. It's just a table in the room and the light up there. That happened because they ran out of money for that set.
No.
It's the most striking shot with that. Limitations can really help creativity. So the way I feel is, I was looking on my PlayStation 4 and looking for games to buy this month. And I'm bored with everything our industry is shipping. And I just really love this idea about putting out a really small, like graphically bad handheld with that's all about the gameplay and these cute little gimmicks. I think it'll be fun.
One game a week for 12 weeks. A little LED flashes when a new game comes out. You have no idea what it's going to be.
Yep.
The Kranken's time travel adventure is basically the guy that developed Katamari Damacy.
Great game.
It's like and it's just like and the list of game developers they have is really, really cool.
Yeah.
Apparently they're doing a game, too, called Untitled Goose Game. It's a lovely morning in the village, and you are a horrible goose. Oh, this is like that goat game.
That's exactly.
I like their
the one
goat
by
game.
the Quap people, because Quap people are evil.
Quap? It's a game by House. Is that the Quap people?
I can't remember.
All right. Here it is, the Untitled Goose Game. I love the name, by the way. It's coming to the Switch and computers. So sounds like Panic did not write this, but they're publishing it.
That's what it looks like.
It's a very interesting business model. Are they Australian? I feel like they are.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't.
PlayDate? Or you mean Panic?
Yeah.
They're in Portland.
Oh, close.
I was thinking
Very much
everybody
like
I know.
Australia, but just north of us. About 11 hours. Wetter.
I could walk there
More
faster
densely
than I could fly
populated.
to
They have a
Australia.
soccer team.
They're still somewhat upside down.
Look at
So this is a bad goose. I love the graphic style. Looks a little like Tintin or something. And the music. So anyway, I do think I completely agree with you that it's nice to know that there's room for kind of quirky indie stuff, creativity.
Right.
Yeah.
And the budget to develop something like this, like there's a hard limit to how much that's going to be on something like PlayDate. So
Yeah, I mean $150 you you can't make much. You can't do much with that.
I do think it's worth saying, they haven't really established a dev pipeline to get on the device. They haven't really talked about the store, how that will work. There are a lot of questions left about this device. So,
Kind of like a Kickstarter.
Yeah. It's exactly
Except they didn't ask for money yet. You can only your email address.
Yep.
Turns out, according to Engadget, Facebook tried to buy Panic, but failed.
Wow.
This is actually in Edge magazine. So let me go to the Edge story since they came up with this. It's deep within the story apparently, but let me see. Oh wait a minute. Here's something brought to life by renowned Swedish industrial design firm Teenage Engineering. So that's who's designing the Playdate.
That's who basically came up with the idea for the crank.
So the crank is a UI. You got the normal plus button, and then the cross keys, and then the normal A/B keys. But there's crank, and they say the gameplay will involve the crank.
I suspect that's going to get very gimmicky very quickly, like the 3DS 3D screen.
Yeah.
I don't see a lot of people using that.
They got Amy Hennig, who did the co-creator of
It'd
the
be great for
Uncharted
driving
series.
games.
That's true.
What game? What do
Crank
you
up your car before.
What do you
No,
What do you use a crank for?
As a steering wheel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just think of it as any game that you use a joystick in a circular fashion.
I think like old time movie camera guy. See how still you can keep the camera while you're cranking the film.
Well, that's what's interesting about that first game is they're using the crank to allow their character to move slower or faster than real time while all of the obstacles are coming at the character.
Oh, so it could be like a time
normal
turner.
speed.
Kind of.
Yeah,
Okay.
it literally is a sort of time shifting game. But I mean, it's also again, I've got 2 buttons, a thumb pad, and a crank. What can we do with this?
Right.
You know?
Right. It's exciting to start thinking about that.
So
The crank is a D-pad, but can be used as a D-pad with no up and down.
I think you're overthinking this.
I'm just trying to think of uses for it.
I hope I get one. I mean, I imagine they're going to be sold out very quickly, right? Play.date if you want to quickly get on the list. It's yellow. It fits in your pocket. It's got a beautiful black and white screen. It's not super cheap, but it's not super expensive. It includes brand new games from some amazing creators. Plus, it has a crank. It's very Swedish. I'm very
Portland.
curious.
Portland.
The designer's from Sweden. Didn't I just say that? I thought I just said that. Yeah. Saved that. I saved that. Okay. Fascinating. And you want to write games for this, Brianna, because
If I have time,
you'll be
I doubt
sitting in
I'll-
Congress in the
Yes.
House. I know what's going to happen.
yeah.
You're going to be sitting there. You're going to stop by the candy desk, picked
Yeah.
up some candy.
Yeah.
You're sitting there. They're waiting for a cloture vote. We're going to see you on C-SPAN. Wait a minute. What is going on down there? Is Representative Wu? What is she cranking something? What is going on? The Sergeant at Arms is coming over. I don't know. You're going to have to get a permission to. I think are there limits on what you
really
can
want to
do?
know is if you get elected and you're wandering by the desks during a vote, how many people are playing games under the desk?
Oh, we want to
How
know the
desperate do you
inside.
want to
I'm
know?
gonna bust every one of
We
them.
want the story. We want the
This
inside
is what I
story.
want you to think about: a speech and how many Final Fantasy references I will drop in a speech.
Oh, I would vote for you just for that.
This could be great. Like that the Patton Oswalt thing where he comes out.
As
and
Zelda
gives
once
this-
told me.
like the epic Star Wars Star Trek crossover that he does to filibuster
Parks
a
and
town
Rec
meeting.
thing, yeah.
I'm gonna do that. It's gonna be great.
That's going to be so good. I hope to
22
God.
hours, and we're up to the beginning of chapter 2.
I hope to God you get elected. I just think this is going to be very exciting. All right. We had that was a little amuse-bouche, a little sorbet, a little refresher,
Palate
a
cleanser.
palate cleanser in between the havoc that is today's tech news. We mentioned last week that Grindr, that the CFIUS, the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States, is ordering the Chinese company that bought Grindr some years ago to sell them, and in the meantime, not to give any data to the Chinese. Well, now we know why. It turns out that Beijing Kunlun Tech Company, which took control in January of last year, stepped up management changes, consolidated operations, cut costs. In the process, some of the company's engineers in Beijing got access to the Grindr database for a few months. Now, Grindr, in case you don't know, is a gay dating app. It's Tinder for gay people, right? And of course, I think the real concern is blackmail. Yeah. If you're a closeted member of Congress or in the defense.
Well, it also includes information on HIV status. I mean, there's a lot of incredibly personal information.
Yeah. Very personal. Yep. It could be used against you. It could be used for blackmail. It could be all sorts of things. So I agree it should be sold, but I think now we know that their security was very lax. Yeah. Reuters, which reported this, found no evidence the app's database was misused. Nevertheless, the decision to give engineers in Beijing access to Grindr's database was, well, a misstep. Yeah. And that was one of the reasons CFIUS said, yeah, you're going to be selling that.
I mean, I think that's very clearly a valid worry that people could be blackmailed or extorted about that. And, it's not just Grindr. That's not the problem here. It happens with large data aggregation. And we need to be thinking a lot more critically about
Facebook.
About Facebook. I got some things to say about them.
I got some talk. You got some talking to. So that is one thing that I've been told by security experts is if you don't see the data, for instance, from this first American title breach, if you don't see it on the black market, on the dark web, then it was almost certainly China. Because that's what happened to the OPM data. That's what happened to the Anthem insurance data. It just disappeared. Like the data was exfiltrated but disappeared. And the theory is the Chinese government is using it to track agents, to blackmail, to keep an eye on Chinese citizens abroad, that kind of thing. And so that's why they're breaking in. I would bet you the first American title. Actually, there's no breach there yet. There's just a flaw.
Yeah, we don't know any reporting on that.
We don't know. Yeah. Well, we'll keep an eye peeled. Chinese students, as long as we're talking about China. And then we'll get to Huawei.
Oh, there's a lot to say there.
There's a lot to say about Huawei. This is tragic. Chu Jianshuan, a Chinese student, leader of the Marxist Student Association in Peking. Chinese students apparently are making farewell messages, videos, amidst crackdowns on labor activism. I could show you. It's in Chinese, so it probably wouldn't communicate to most of us. But this is a way of saying, he's saying I was interrogated, I was tortured. It was done on campus. Yeah. He says if I disappear, it'll be because of the Chinese secret police, Beijing police. He disappeared April 29th.
It's very reminiscent of Tiananmen Square. That happened when I was just a kid. It was all about people wanting to be able to express political opinions more openly. And I think it's very notable, like China has actually, that's one of the most scrubbed incidents on the Chinese incident is Tiananmen Square. They just refer to it as the Tiananmen incident. Yeah. It's very, very troubling.
So I mention this only to underscore that the Chinese government has not a great history of human rights and so forth. Yeah. So when we talk about Huawei, it's somewhat understandable that maybe, I can, if the U.S. government or the defense agencies have evidence that Huawei was co-opted by the Chinese government, that they might become adversaries, whether it's industrial espionage, or cyber warfare, that would be reasonable to say we got to stop using Huawei stuff. And that's kind of what's happening. At this point, Huawei is persona non grata in a lot of ways. Started last week when President Trump signed an executive order banning the use of Huawei gear in actually what he banned was United States companies selling their gear to China, to Huawei. Which pretty much puts Huawei out of business. Shortly thereafter, Google said, okay, no Android license. subsequently say, well, we're going to give you 90 days and we're going to keep giving you patches, but it doesn't. I don't know if that 90-day. This is part of what's so confusing about this is this back and forth thing.
Yeah, if I'm correct about this, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it was the U.S. Department of Commerce, and then they were added to the entities list. And the entities list is basically a list of companies the American companies are forbidden to do business with unless they have a specific written exemption with that.
Okay, you know the politics.
And I mean, the thing about the operating system is probably the least troubling thing. So they can replace the operating system, and more importantly, they can get access to it because so much of it is open source. ARM licensing has apparently been shut down.
Yep.
So ARM, the English company, has said now we're going to withdraw a license. Qualcomm, which makes ARM chips used by Huawei, says we're not going to sell you any more chips. Huawei makes its own Kirin processors, but those are ARM chips.
Yep.
Huawei can't use micro SD cards in its phone. Huawei can't buy Gorilla Glass from Corning. Huawei can't buy memory from Micron.
Right.
So the order, which Trump signed Wednesday, prohibits the purchase or use of any communications technology produced by entities controlled by a foreign adversary and likely to create undue risk of sabotage of U.S. communication systems or catastrophic effects. So that means we can't buy their stuff. The Commerce Department now has 150 days to produce rules that can identify particular countries or persons as foreign adversaries. According to Politico, that's very likely going to name China and Huawei or both, or either or both.
So, Leah, I feel like I have a lot to say about this.
Can I say one more
please,
thing?
Go ahead.
Then I'm going to give you a chance because the latest is interview with Donald Trump.
Yes.
This is awkward.
This is bad.
This was Thursday afternoon. Remember, Trump addressed the press and was asked about Huawei. This is what the president said. Huawei is something that's very dangerous. You look at what they've done from a security standpoint, from a military standpoint, it's very dangerous. So it's possible that Huawei even would be included. Wait a minute. Now, this is where, okay, got it. They're very dangerous. Then the next sentence is, so it's possible Huawei even would be included in some kind of a trade deal. If we made a deal, I could imagine Huawei being possibly included in some form, some part of a trade deal. Reporter, how would that look? Trump, it would look very good for us. Reporter, but the Huawei part, how would you design that? Oh, it's too early to say. We're just very concerned about Huawei from a security standpoint. So there's two different things he's saying here.
Right.
One is they're dangerous. The other is, well, once we have a trade deal, they're not so dangerous.
As if that will be included there.
So this is all along been my concern, and then Brianna, I'm going to ask what you think, but all along my concern is it's unclear, because we haven't been given evidence, is we know Huawei's kind of a crappy company. I mean, Father Robert said, the Huawei guy was wandering around the trade show taking pictures of the competitors' stuff. Yeah. They've been caught doing not such great stuff.
Yeah.
Not corporate espionage, not security stuff.
Normal everyday scumbaggery.
Many companies. One of the accusations is they flew tech reporters to Paris and London. Well, every freaking company. I get offers every week. Hey, how'd you like to go to Computex? All expenses paid. I mean, that's very common.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that I don't know if that's. I mean, it's not good, but it's not national security bad.
Right.
They haven't shown us national security evidence, but maybe they can't because that would reveal sources. So I understand.
Sources and methods.
Yes.
I think it's really important to go back in time here and kind of establish a timeline here.
Okay, good.
So, let's think back with 2016 and Goosefer 2.0, like basically penetrating the Hillary Clinton campaign.
And that was, we now know, Russia, GRU.
Exactly, exactly. So information security on these devices, this is a very legit concern. And I want to tell you, Leo, I have gotten warnings to not use Huawei devices on my campaign, to not let anyone from the Democratic National Committee, as suggested by our intelligence agencies.
And the DNC is rightly a little jumpy about this.
After 2016, it's a valid concern. So I want to preface my remarks by saying, InfoSec, like cybersecurity, this is 10 out of 10 important. It's the right thing for us to be thinking about as a country. But what is the evidence so far that Huawei is spying on the United States? There's nothing There's nothing in the public domain. There's not been any evidence shown to us or any kind of information security person that we can point to and say this is an unusual threat. The best thing that they've come up to show is basically how different forks of Huawei software could potentially be, code signed in a malicious way and weaponized against us.
The UK stuff or the Vodafone
It was
stuff?
it was the UK stuff. Again, a valid concern, but if every single company that is not doing cybersecurity correctly is going to end up on this entities list, there's going to be a lot of people out of business in the United States.
Plus the title company.
Right, exactly. And I really want you to think for a second, what happens if China does this back to us? What happens if China says, you know what? If you're a Chinese company, you can't do anything with Microsoft software or Google software, or they decide to throw Apple out of their country again. This really could be a digital Cold War.
But the fact that it could backfire against us shouldn't stop us from doing the right thing.
Of course. It's the right problem, and it's a wrong approach.
What would you suggest?
Well, Huawei, what they themselves have come forward and said is look, we understand you have concerns. We're willing to let you in, show you our hardware, show you our software, allow a code auditing process. It's worth pointing out it's very hard to prove a negative. And it's very hard to prove that there's not a secret backdoor in hardware or software. But it's a step in the right direction. So I think we should, if we have concerns about spying, I think we should bring them in, should try different solutions to verify that this is not being used maliciously against us. And then if we have to take it to DEFCON 4, we can. But I don't think we're there yet.
It is. This is the other. This is so difficult and Trump just really confused it, because if he said security, 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 I'd feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
But when he says security, security, but if we make a trade deal, never mind, that really sounds like it's a good possibility that this is purely political.
Right.
On the other hand, we've talked about this before. In fact, there's really no reason to allow Huawei or any Chinese networking gear in, because most of that is software driven, and there's nothing to stop them. Maybe Huawei is completely pure as a driven snow right now. There's not a lot of evidence that they are, but let's say they are. There's nothing to stop the Chinese government in a month from saying, oh, by the way, here's some little code that you could insert into the switch.
Right.
Well, okay. You want to not disappear? Use this.
There's also been a lot of anecdotal evidence that has come out, and one of the things that has come out in some cases is you will find that stuff that has been shipped from factory X, from company X, has been rerouted, and things have been manipulated, added, or boxes have been opened somewhere in between leaving the factory and hitting
the classic
boat.
supply chain problem.
Yeah, and it's interesting, right? Because there's a lot of places for the wheels to fall off. Yeah. There's a lot of places for things to go wrong. Code is incredibly complicated. Maintaining code is incredibly complicated. Oh, wait, did we just forget to update the code, or did we put the wrong code on that one because some technician was up for 22 hours trying to get everything packaged for the delivery and screwed up and installed the wrong software? It's really, really messy.
Yeah. Imagine if someone got the code signing on it. They passed an update to it with the backdoor. The solution here isn't to blacklist one company here. It's for us to have a really serious conversation as a nation about cybersecurity, to work with other nations, to develop a framework about this stuff. And that way it's not just American safe, it's people all over the world. This isn't just an American problem. This is a worldwide problem.
Yeah.
Can we blacklist 5 more companies?
Well, by the way, the U.S. apparently, according to Bloomberg, is considering blacklisting 5 Chinese video companies, none of which I'd ever heard of.
Go to Amazon, look for a cheap camera.
Well, that's the thing, is there's a lot of those cameras on Amazon.
Yep.
Many of them may not be branded with those particular brand names.
Yep.
Here's Russell Brandom writing on The Verge. It's a convincing case when it comes to restricting Huawei's role in network infrastructure, as I just said. And it's a case a number of officials have made in that context. But it makes a lot less sense for exported hardware. Why shouldn't Corning glass or Micron flash memory be sold to Huawei for use in phones? They're not even bound for the U.S. They can't sell them. They don't sell them here. They're bound for Europe.
Right.
So the infrastructure security argument makes no sense for those phones. And if the problem really is just that China has a history of intellectual property violations, which is what President Trump says, and trade secret theft, the same logic could easily apply to other Chinese companies like Lenovo and drone maker DJI, with catastrophic consequences for those companies in the industry at large. Most of these companies make a lot of money on the West, and particularly on the U.S. We know ZTE is practically non-existent after the similar restrictions last year. I could imagine Huawei, even though they're pluckily saying, no, we can soldier on. We don't need Android. We don't need your stinking Corning glass. We don't need. We've been stockpiling parts for years. We can continue on.
Well, they have like 3 months worth of parts, probably.
Yeah.
But it's also they also, I mean, part of what, to muddy the waters even further, one of the arguments about this is, the real challenge is that they're trying to clear the way for American companies or other companies to create basically all of the 5G hardware that's going to run the network, and they don't want that into. I mean, there's been they're clearing the path for other companies so that Huawei doesn't get all the business, despite the fact that Huawei's prices may actually be cheaper or their tools, blah blah blah. There's the other one that's like, the American government is pissed because the Chinese government will have the backdoors instead of the NSA having the backdoors at the switch level. I mean, the number of, because there's no hard information, the number of backstories and conspiracies on this just, every couple of weeks somebody's got another theory.
Can I say something about that? It's utterly legit with 5G, though. Like, there's a philosophical difference that the Chinese government wants to embed certain kinds of technologies within the 5G infrastructure code for the standard they are advocating that will allow them to basically backtrace who says what. Right, to basically track where communications come from. The American standard that we're pushing for is far more privacy oriented. So again, my solution to this is we've seen this in the EU, this danger of balkanizing.
I'm laughing because I'm like, create the perfect device for ruling an authoritarian state, you'll be able to spy on everyone else in the world if your equipment is deployed.
So it's completely possible. To me, in fact, seems likely there is a security threat. The Trump doesn't really understand that. He understands trade, so he conflated the two. Yeah. And that if he would try to make the resuscitation of Huawei an agenda with his trade agenda, that the intelligence agencies will say, no, Mr. President, you can't do that. So I guess we could take that part out of the equation.
Sure.
Here's what Bloomberg said, and this is actually scary. Bloomberg's headline is "The Tech Cold War has begun," and this is how they wanted it. China now has no choice but to pursue technological independence and will burn the cash to achieve it. Stratechery, Ben Thompson, who lives in Taiwan and is very familiar with Chinese culture across the straits there, says this is something China's been preparing for. It is actually a very Chinese thing. This goes back to the Boxer Rebellion and China closing its doors to the West. Culturally, I think, and I'm no expert, but culturally, I think there's a long history in China of rejecting the West and say, we are the middle kingdom. We're the center of the world. We don't need you. And in fact, if they decided that, I think what would show up is maybe they don't need us, but we sure as hell need them.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's a big problem. You were talking about before the show, rare earth materials.
Well, the rare earth is probably a MacGuffin. A bigger issue is like, where are all of our laptops going to be manufactured?
And our smartphones.
Yeah. I mean, our game consoles.
India.
And our televisions.
India, Brazil, South Korea. I mean, I use a Samsung phone made in South Korea.
It's not as simple as just relocating a factory. There is a massive collection of businesses, that all work together in that region that give them, at this current state, some pretty significant advantages in terms of producing electronics in a timely and efficient fashion.
Tim Culpin, writing in Bloomberg, says, even the briefest of bans will be proof to them that China can no longer rely on outsiders. We can now expect China to redouble efforts to roll out a homegrown smartphone operating system, design its own chips, develop its own semiconductor technology, including design tools and manufacturing equipment, and implement its own technology standards. Now, they've got the resources to do that. Whether they'll do it well, I don't know. But This can only accelerate, he writes, the process of creating a digital iron curtain that separates the world into two distinct, mutually exclusive technology spheres. That doesn't, on the face of it, seem like a very good thing.
It doesn't. We're seeing a balkanization of the internet with
already.
recent EU policy.
Splinternet, they call it.
Splinternet.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I do want to just say, and this is not my opinion. I'm just sharing my father-in-law's opinion, who is, he immigrated here from China. I would ask most Americans to take a breath and to realize many Chinese people feel an immense sense of pride with Huawei. It's the company that's kind of gone toe-to-toe with Apple. They do consider it a national treasure.
Currently the number 2 phone manufacturer in the world.
Exactly. So, again, my instinct here is we should be working with these people and trying not to balkanize the entire technology industry.
And I think you could make a case that our national security is better served by free and open trade with an adversary than by closing the doors.
Entangled interests, absolutely.
Exactly. As long as China has an economic interest in the United States, it's highly unlikely that they're going to attack us.
Right.
And so it worries me. It feels like the wrong direction.
I agree.
And I don't want to underestimate the cybersecurity dangers Huawei presents to our network and our allies' networks. But there's got to be a better way than closing the door entirely.
Absolutely.
That doesn't seem like the best policy.
It's the right problem, but the wrong solution, basically.
Yeah. And by the way, China's hackers are pretty good too.
Yeah.
So the other risk is what we were talking about earlier, is of an all-out cyber war. I think you could make the case that the U.S. in a traditional warfare would have a strong case, but I don't know if we have the same advantage in a cyber warfare. I don't know if we do.
This was in the Wall Street Journal the other day. China is they're focusing their military currently on AI and machine learning and deep learning technology to basically have machines that spend all day, every day trying to penetrate our systems.
It's very William Gibson at this point.
It really is. It's terrifying. And, to a certain point, I think my job, if I were fortunate enough to serve in Congress, would be to fund countermeasures for that. But we need to not underestimate our enemy or potential enemy here. It doesn't matter how many tanks, guns, planes we have if we can't transport the fuel to fly them.
It's not going to do any good if the grid's shut down.
Exactly.
Ben Thompson, good article as always from Stratechery. Final paragraph. This is the true war when it comes to technology: censorship versus openness, control versus creativity, and centralization versus competition. Yeah. These are, of course, connected. China's censorship is about control facilitated by centralization. That, though, should not only give Western tech companies and investors pause about China generally, but it should also lead to serious introspection about the appropriate policies towards our own tech industry. Openness, creativity, and competition are just as related as their counterparts. Infringement on any of them should be taken as a threat to all three. So it's an interesting take on all this, which is we should as China doubles down on closing its doors, we should double down on opening our doors.
I agree.
It's a very interesting take from somebody who's very smart. All right. But meanwhile, I sure want to get that PlayDate game machine. That sounds cool.
Yeah, I brought my old school 80s Game Boy on this trip.
Did you?
I should have brought it. We could play some Tetris. So, my husband.
Do you enjoy it?
My husband, he loves old tech games. It's at a level where he feels in control of it. So we play a lot of Tetris from the 80s Game Boy.
You're in good company. I see if I can find this picture.
You should play Tetris 99.
Oh, that's a good game.
Oh, it's supposed to be very good.
That's a depressing game because there are people.
Loves it.
Yeah.
Why is it depressing?
Because there are people that have done nothing but play Tetris since the 80s, and they will destroy you.
So good.
I'm sorry, but that's true for me for every game.
Okay. Yeah.
If I'm going to worry about dangerous games, I get waxed the minute I play any game. Let me see if I can find this picture. Here it is. This is somebody you might recognize and his wife. They, too, really enjoy their Game Boy. Sorry, it's a very large photo. It's taking a while to download. Let me see if I can get it again. Oh, it's so big. Come on, baby. You know,
Real challenge of 35 megabit negatives.
Sometimes the internet is just so slow. One more time. Well, I could just zoom in
on the thumbnail.
Zoom in on the thumbnail.
Look at that.
Somebody you might know.
I do.
And by the way, notice they have the Game Boy Interlink.
I love it. That's the key.
They're playing head-to-head. Probably Tetris. That's Steve Watson.
One of the only people patient enough to get that running.
That's horrible.
Isn't that awesome? I had to take that picture when I saw them in the lobby of the hotel. This was
fantastic.
A cruise we took to South America.
Which Game Boy is that? That looks like the Game Boy Color.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, sure, it's the best money could buy.
It wouldn't be because the Game Boy Advance has a better screen.
What about the 3D?
Yeah, one.
Or VR. Game Boy VR, man. Our show today brought to you by Cashfly. Oh, man, literally brought to you by Cashfly. When you go, people tell me this all the time. You know, I don't know what you guys are doing when I go to download the show, whether it's from your website or with my podcast application. It's always just comes right in fast. I never have a problem. There's never any hiccup or pause. That's Cashfly, our CDN, our content delivery network. We've been on Cashfly for 10 years now. When we first started Twit, it's kind of funny. I mean, it grew a little faster than I anticipated. At first, I was just having them downloaded from my website, which immediately I ran out of bandwidth. So then I started using BitTorrent. I said, please seed our show, and then other people will be able to get it. Thank God Matt Levine at Cashfly came over to me, it's probably 2007 or 8, and said, Leo, let's fix this. And ever since, it's been a happy match, Twit and Cashfly. We love Cashfly. You will too. If you have to deliver content, software, a web app to your customers, power it with the Cashfly CDN, you will be 30% faster than the competition. Cashfly delivers rich media content up to 10 times faster than the traditional delivery methods. It does that by having servers all over the world close to where your customers are. But it's also 30% faster than other major CDNs. And because they have servers all over the world, they can give you a 100% SLA. I'm not talking 4 nines, 5. I'm talking 100%. Cashfly guarantees the best user experience for all your customers, no matter where they are, what device they're on. LG, Microsoft, Adobe, Ars Technica, and Twit. We all use Cashfly's reliable network. I love Cashfly. I've never gotten that call 3 in the morning. The CDN's down. Never. The other thing that's great about billing, Cashfly will work with you because they know a lot of bandwidth usage is spiky, right? Like we get lots of downloads Sunday night and it slows down through the week. Cashfly will work with you to get a custom plan tailored to your needs based on your yearly usage trends, so you know what you're going to pay. You want to find out how much you can save? Go to twit.cashfly.com, and you'll get a free, completely detailed analysis of your current CDN bill and usage trends. No sales pitch, just straight facts, so you'll know if Cashfly can save you as much as 20% on your CDN or more. twit.cashfly.com. We love them, and we're so glad that they help us out, and I think you should try them too. They could help you out. twit.cashfly.com. Let's find something fun.
Yes.
No.
That was a heavy topic. Oh my gosh.
Panasonic, by the way, is also suspending transactions with Huawei. That means no batteries.
Gosh.
That's where they get their batteries.
Oh no.
I feel like we're gonna put this company out of business, and it's going to happen fast, and it might be something we regret. By the way, I love I have a Huawei P20, and the newer what is it, P30 is amazing. Paul Thurrott's images are fantastic. I've always wanted that MateBook. You've played with that.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah. It's better than a MacBook.
Christina raves about it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. You work with that Christina
Warren. She's dangerous.
And Simone Rochefort. That is a good podcast, by the way. If you're looking for more podcasts to listen to, you're still doing it during the campaign?
Yeah. I love Christina and Simone so much that even if I was elected, I would not quit Rocket. We would find a way to do it every week.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I couldn't accept any sponsor money at that point legally, but
you'd have to, like, when the ad comes along. Well, you let Simone do it anyway.
We do.
But when the ad comes along, you'd have to just leave the room.
I would do that and just give Simone and Christina the whole
I don't
time.
know what's going to happen next, but I'm not going to be here.
I think it's more about not accepting the money.
Yeah,
rather than
that's
covering your
that's
ears
easy.
and going la 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 la.
I'm sure
la.
Mike would be glad to keep your
he'd
share.
be great. Yeah. But I mean, think about like a podcast from Congress every week talking about the tech policy going on. That would be a good show.
We have gone back and forth, Lisa and I, about doing.
Can you do that show for us, please?
No. I'm envisioning certain. I'm taking certain quotes I've heard from various Congress critters and senators and thinking like, yes, that would be an interesting.
Yeah. It'll be me and Marsha Blackburn on the show. It'll be great.
That would be great. No, we've talked a lot about doing a tech and politics show. I think
There it is, yeah.
Unfortunately,
Angering everyone. The new Tech and
I know,
Politics
you can't
phone
win.
and Quit Network.
But well, this is a problem for us because when we first started, when Patrick and I were working together 20 years ago, it was computers, maybe a little internet thrown in.
There were political discussions at times.
But technology is now in every facet of our lives.
Yes.
It's everywhere. There's really no more a distinction between, well, this is a tech subject and this is something else. It's all mushed together.
Yeah.
So it's challenging. I mean, I wish I would be so happy to be sitting here talking about, those new Intel i9 processors, 8 cores at 5 gigahertz. What do you think, Patrick?
I think I want to actually test one and see if it works out in real life. But no, I mean, it was funny though, because I had a conversation with a relative and they were just like, oh, net neutrality is bad. And I'm just like, net neutrality, oh goodness.
It's bad. Where did they get that? Well, that's the problem. I had somebody call me up on the radio show, exactly that. It's bad. I said, why is it bad? Because I don't want the government making any regulations. I said, sir, do you wear a seatbelt? Sir, do you drive on the highway? Sir, how do you trust the drinking water coming out of your tap? Well, yeah. Well, gosh darn it. That's called a government regulation. Sir, when you walk out of your house, do you worry that somebody might come up and hit you on the back of the head? Well, no. Well, that's called laws. That's what makes this. We're a nation of laws. It's okay to make a law. Okay. I'm sorry.
I agree.
Meanwhile, Intel just announced 9 i9 processors. So Intel historically, has been unable to cross 4 gigahertz. They can't get below 10 nanometers. They can't. So I think they've given up on the 10 nanometers, honestly. They say they're going to do them, but
they haven't.
Well, they're trying. No one's denying they're trying. You've got companies like TSMC making 7 nanometer processors, but anyway, okay, I'm just saying. But Intel has apparently been able to crack the 4 gigahertz barrier. They are now, this is an i9, the 9900KS, 8 cores, all of which can run at 5 gigahertz all the time.
Well, I mean, and this is actually a big deal because, you always see it's running at like 1.3 gigahertz and 2.7 gigahertz in turbo modes.
Speed step or whatever.
Yeah. But, and it's like basically, okay, for one brief moment, your processor will shoot up to this fast, one core.
Right.
Of your processor.
And then
will go
thermals
this
will
fast.
shut it down immediately.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
Like it basically makes something move a little faster than it might otherwise. If this is, this is directly,
This would be very exciting if it's true.
Yeah, and I want to see benchmarks on these. I want to see benchmarks on these versus the Ryzen. I want to see the Ryzen 3, right, which is going to be coming out.
Part.
Yeah, which is going to be coming out like 7 nanometers.
We've got the AMD Intel competition is bad.
Oh yeah.
Well, but
it's more because Intel stumbled than because AMD is so great. Maybe yes, no.
AMD is doing some extraordinary things right now. Don't take any credit away from Dr. Su and the team at AMD. They are doing some badass engineering. They're also doing some badass pricing. And yes, Intel left a badass door the size of a house for them to drive through.
Yep.
Intel for a long time was like, Ryan and I used to talk about this before he went to go work at Intel. About how Intel.
What are you talking about, Patrick? I don't know anything.
NDAs are fine, and but what we would talk about is that Intel didn't really care about PC users. They didn't really care about PC power users, especially.
What was their market?
Well, the majority.
Servers?
No, well, I mean, so they make a ton of money in a lot of places. We don't want to get that granular, right? But
Not
in terms
mobile.
of
That's the only thing I know.
Yeah. Well, so what happened, right? Is Intel, much like Microsoft, never really made it in handhelds and mobile, and that was a huge problem because the vast majority of the planet is going to interface with the internet and computers in the form of a phone. That said, and then so we're gonna do Raspberry Pi competitive. Well, that didn't seem to work out. We have this amazing.
They killed that, the Edison, right?
They killed a lot of stuff, and they went back like, we can make really fast processors for enthusiasts and professionals.
Ooh,
but the majority of the market, though, is actually laptops. And laptops in a certain price range.
I love my MacBook Air, which is running a U processor.
Right.
It's slow, but it doesn't seem slow. I have the $5,000 iMac Pro on my desktop. I don't go running in there when I want to do something because I have my nice, thin, light MacBook Air. I'm very happy.
Hey, when I'm browsing the web, a laptop is
Most
fine.
of what we do, 90% of what we do, it doesn't need anything faster than these.
It gets a little messy when you get into
photography,
gaming
video,
at a certain level,
rendering, gaming.
Yeah.
I have a confession. When I do call time, I have Final Fantasy 14 opened up on my Mac most of the time. It's
videos,
like you're doing grafting. So
where's your campaign manager?
I do keep that open on my Mac as we're going.
We should explain call time is something that is the great shame of the United States of America.
It's horrible. It's horrible.
Which is that a significant percentage of the time that anybody elected in an elected office, at least at the federal level, spends calling donors asking for money.
Right.
Shaking the money tree.
Oh, it's true.
And it's called call time.
It's called call time.
It's got to be the most miserable time of year. How much time do you have to spend?
I actually love it. I love it. I've grown to love it. But there is a lot of downtime between each call.
So that's where Zelda comes
that's
in.
where I'm doing that. But my point with this is,
I just love that vision of you. So you're gonna like this.
Well, you're crafting in Final Fantasy 14. Yes.
We've got I don't know who we got. We've got the Koch brothers on line 3. Okay, hold on a second.
They will not.
Okay, the Koch brothers are on line 3. No, hold on. I'm almost there. The Koch brothers on line 3. Oh, just screw it. I'm busy.
So we would say that, should that. My point is though, I am interested.
George Soros on line 4.
I would pick up that call. My point is, I do think that there is I personally have a need for better processors in my MacBooks. But the fact that Apple has really handicapped the processor architecture with the thermal design.
I don't think it's Apple's fault. In fact, Apple at their quarterly call said we would have made more, we would have sold more, but we couldn't get the parts. They didn't name Intel, but they knew. But everybody knew this is Apple. Effectively spanking Intel because
this
Intel
is also Apple that could have given a rat's ass about the computer lines for the better part of a decade because most of their money came from iPhones.
Yeah, but I'm not sure that. I think Apple would have liked to have done better and more because Mac is important to them both internally because everybody uses a Mac at Apple, but also to developers. You don't get any Mac OS or iOS software if developers don't have Macs.
I have literally melted 2 MacBook Pros running Maya, which is a very heavy 3D program, on a MacBook Pro because the thermals are so bad and the heat eventually caused the logic board to fail.
But it's silent.
Right, exactly. So,
I'll grant you that.
When they're talking about the new Intels in the new 15-inch that they just launched, I'm like, I have to admit, Leo, I was like, what's the freaking point?
I had my finger poised over the buy button until I looked over to the right and it said $5,000. and I went, whoa. Yeah. And honestly, I'm buying Windows PCs because I can't bring myself to buy. I can't use these keyboards. I can't bring myself to buy what Apple's making. I just bought a ThinkPad X1 Extreme, which I'm very happy with. And I just put Linux on it.
Yeah,
because I'm not crazy about Windows either, but Linux is pretty damn good these days.
Yeah. And it's amazing because we've installed Linux. Shannon's installed Linux on a bunch of laptops in the past few months, and it's amazing how it used to be like I'm going to install.
It's a very complete experience now.
Oh yeah.
It's a real desktop operating system. Lately, I've been using Pop OS.
Well, it's got support for It's not like you're like
NVIDIA,
I can't use.
It supports all this weird non-free stuff. I've been using Pop OS, which is System 76's spin on Ubuntu, which is a spin on Debian. I don't like that aesthetically, but it installs everywhere. It runs very well on everything. And suddenly, and there's analogs for everything. And if you want to use Microsoft Office, they have a very credible web app that runs just fine. All the Office apps run just fine on the web, or you can use Wine if you really need it, or you can use LibreOffice. There's plenty. I'm using Darktable and Raw Therapy instead of Photoshop and Lightroom.
Really?
Yes. Actually, Raw Therapy is very good. I would recommend.
I'll give it a go. I've never.
I don't
want to
give Adobe anymore in my.
Oh, it's terrible. Ever since they moved to cloud computing,
it's terrible.
well, the cloud, Creative Cloud service.
Yeah. I do keep Windows running on that ThinkPad in a small partition because there's a few Windows apps. You know, mostly it's
Tetris
photography.
99.
Yeah.
99.
There we go.
So this i9 9900KS, we don't know what the TDP will be. It's going to be more than 95 watts, I'm thinking. I don't know how much more. A non-tech says 10% maybe. Right? Not even 150 watts.
Well, but we've also seen a lot of TDPs where when you actually flat everything out, the actual power consumption is considerably higher than the TDP.
You could light up Manhattan with the power.
Not quite, but certainly a room.
Intel has kind of muddied the water a little bit from last year's Computex. By the way, Computex is coming up. That's why this conversation is going on. They kind of pretended that they were running a 28-core Xeon CPU at 5 gigahertz, but they were using a lot of cooling, the Sub-Zero chiller, and maybe there wasn't even all of the information like overclocking and stuff.
Yeah, the other thing that gives me a pause about Intel is, after Spectre Meltdown came out, basically, vulnerabilities in the Intel processor with speculative execution, and we got a whole new basically list of vulnerabilities that came out.
Yeah, Zombieland. The new one is Zombieland.
I was really surprised.
We were talking about this.
Zombie Load. Zombieland is a great movie.
Don't feel bad. I did the same thing in the title 3 times.
Not to be confused with the movie Zombieland. No, Zombie Load, and it takes advantage of speculative execution. And the real problem is that when you turn off speculative execution or you somehow mitigate these threats, you cut performance by, in most cases, significant.
Yeah.
Right.
More than noticeable amount.
Isn't it just in like cloud computing applications?
That's where it's a problem.
Generally?
But Steve Gibson on Security Now, and I'm sure you say the same thing, Patrick, says end users don't really need to worry about it. We haven't seen any exploits in the wild. If you're running a server, multiple users on one processor, absolutely, because any one of those processes could be malicious. Right. But it's hard to get a malicious process on my computer at home. That could then get the right chunks of data.
Sounds like a challenge for someone out there.
I may be wrong, but I don't think there are any exploits in the wild.
It was discovered, it was patched, and then it was announced. But I mean, we've seen numbers anywhere from 3 to 9% for typical home user scenarios with the patch to as much as 40%. A lot of the numbers we heard were for the latest generation and the latest model processors.
That's scary.
But then as they get older, it tends to have a more dramatic impact on performance.
Yeah, no kidding. And I asked Steve this, and he thinks it's possible. I'm not sure it's possible to mitigate in a newer design without turning off speculative execution. He says you can, and I don't know enough about processor design, but he says that it is the flaw is this leakage of information between processes, and he says it's completely possible to still have speculative execution, but to have policies in place that keep information from going to.
I feel comfortable in saying a lot of people that are much smarter than I will ever be are working furiously at that problem with staggering amounts of money behind them right now.
Yes.
Isn't the problem with the ring states for the processor and not the speculative execution itself? So that's
I know the leakage. I don't know where the leakage occurs.
Yeah.
And then hackers are good these days. I mean, it's things like, and by the way, these are mostly white hat hackers because the black hats are just using scripts, but the white hat hackers, people like Tavis Ormandy, seem to be able to using fuzzing and all sorts of interesting techniques. The timing techniques are the ones that amaze me.
Yeah, I'm not even.
It's hard to believe it even works, but it does. Okay, so see, I got a little processor talk in there. It's processor time.
And there was leaks of new AMD GPUs in advance of Computex, in advance of AMD's keynote at Computex.
Why don't we do a little Computex preview, Patrick Norton?
Well, that's the big thing I'm excited about is essentially like the 3080 and 3070, which are comparable to a 2060 and a 2070 in performance, but for about $100 less. And no, as far as we know, there will be no RTX support. which I don't particularly mind because there's only like 5 RTX games, and
RTX is this ray tracing technology that's in both, I think, AMD.
The ray tracing technology that looks amazing in technology announcements, but in real world games at this point is not a huge difference.
Well, wouldn't you? Oh, really? So even the games that are using it, you don't see it.
It's early days, man.
I saw that
it's really
amazing. Was it Doom? The demo where they used ray tracing, and it was pretty good looking.
Yeah, it was Doom. It was
pretty. Yeah.
I'll show you.
Well, it makes sense. Carmack is like, well, at least his legacy is on that team.
Yeah, he's now at Oculus.
Was it Doom or Quake? It was Quake.
Quake 2 real-time ray tracing. This is using RTX 2. And I don't know if this is before or after. But the lighting effects...
No, this is after.
This is the after.
Oh, look at that. Yeah.
Yeah. So the textures aren't going to get much better, but look at the lighting effects. And the things like... I'll scroll ahead a little bit. Things like the light coming in through windows, which is the kind of thing you'd expect ray tracing to...
So have they released the open source version of this yet?
I don't know. Have they?
Well, this was like a project from NVIDIA.
Yeah. Well, it's a proof of concept, Patrick.
I'm down with proofs of concept, but making a really old game look better using a technology that requires an expensive GPU is not as impressive to me as making a contemporary game look better on your expensive new GPU.
Okay.
I have to tell you, like, as a 3D professional and Unreal expert, I don't see anything there you couldn't fake with other means.
I'm ashamed to admit I let our 16-year-old buy and play Mortal Kombat 11.
Oh, gosh. Wow.
I'll walk by every once in a while and go, oh! But, oh, my God. But
it's just a spine.
He's playing it on the Switch.
Yeah.
And it's all trickery, I understand, but it looks like amazing.
Yep. They did a good retopology pass on it. It looks pretty good.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
But it's also a lot of what RTX...
That blood is so realistic. By the way, did you see the story and it was an anonymous developer at Mortal Kombat who was suffering from PTSD because in order to model the blood splatters and what it looks like when a spine is ripped from a body, they actually have real images to work off of. Yeah. And the guy said after months working on this, I can't sleep.
Yeah.
I have PTSD.
I don't doubt that. I'm just trying to figure out where exactly you find the images of spinal columns being ripped
if
out.
you ever talk to an animator, they have the weirdest photo folder you will ever see in your life.
It's like 4chan, but on your next door neighbor's.
It's really it. Yeah.
It is. I got PTSD just walking through the room.
Oh my gosh.
I saw a... what do they call that final?
Med school?
Huh?
Nothing you wouldn't see at
med school. Yeah. If you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen.
I mean, generally in med school, they're dead on a table and you cut them open with a big anatomy book. It's a little different from actually watching.
I think there is a kill move like that, actually.
I've seen them all.
I saw one. Oh my God. I'm watching this stuff. This guy's 16. I can only think this is going to... But no PTSD. He's a very sweet, innocent...
It's a game.
He understands. I don't. There was a move. One of the guys, he has a chain, and he gets it in the person's mouth, and he basically tears their head off.
Yep.
Ew. Ew. GD. Let's talk government.
Okay.
Because you want to be in government.
I do.
You crazy person. GDPR. Now, I looked for conflicts of interest from this site because I'm not familiar with it. Truthonthemarket.com. And I think this is actually a fairly balanced summary by Alex Stapp of GDPR after 1 year, because it was exactly a year ago. And the fines, $55 million, most of that for Google.
Yep.
Cases, 281,000 cases, 37% are ongoing. Only 0.1% appealed. Now, here's the unintended consequences. Some of these I agree with, some of them I don't. Article 15, the right of access. You can access the data the company keeps. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, sometimes the data goes awry. Amazon accidentally sent 1,700 Alexa voice recordings to the wrong user following a data request. This one I've got to read more about. This is from Jean Yang. I don't know if this is true. Jean writes, today I discovered an unfortunate consequence of GDPR. When someone hacks into your account, they can request and potentially access all your data.
Yes, if I sit down at your machine and you've left it open, then I can I can pretend I'm Leo, and companies don't know any different.
Oh, is that how? She says, whoever hacked into my Spotify account got all my streaming song history by requesting it. Oh, yeah, because they're you. All right, I get it. So that's not GDPR, but it is.
No, it is, because GDPR forces them to give you that information. And in the case of the Amazon story, somebody's like, I'm going to find out what Amazon's keeping on me. And they got this giant collection of 1,700 clips. And then they're
from
like,
somebody else.
This is not me. Or
doesn't even sound like me.
Who's that in my house?
But that's, these things happen.
He's always in my house.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it would be very hard to find anyone familiar with GDPR that wouldn't say this is a well-intended law with a bad execution for it, because the companies that they're trying to basically limit what they can do, they're able to get around it very easily. It's closed down and affected a lot of small businesses.
That is a real
San
issue.
Francisco.
Yeah. They talk about the compliance costs.
Astronomical.
For companies with more than 500 employees, it could reach $150 billion. It's an aggregate.
Yep.
75,000 data protection officers will have to be hired. That's one of the requirements. This is a telling one. Microsoft has 1,600 engineers working on compliance. Yep. So that's 1,600 people who have jobs, but they wouldn't be doing it if it weren't for GDPR. And what we have to also wonder is how many businesses have just shuttered because they can't do it.
We should also point out Microsoft has 135,000 employees.
Yes, good point.
And they do this for a living, and they provide tools for other
here's
Here's the more subtle issue, is that a big company can do it.
Right. That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah. A big company is going to be fine. It inadvertently locks in monopolies, right? So...
That's, I mean, I was more worried about what we would have to do for GDPR.
You should be.
I was nervous that in fact, after this new copyright law, I'm worried that we would have to block European listeners because, frankly, the entire show is us commentating on other people's stuff, right? Including this. And under the new copyright law, that might be something we are no longer allowed to do. There's no fair use commentary. So, this is good.
There's Poland.
There's Poland. Poland has now filed a complaint against the copyright directive.
Thank goodness.
Good luck, Poland. We're rooting for you. God bless you, Poland. I'm trying to see what they don't like. They've challenged it, saying the legislation would bring, they're right, unwanted censorship. They filed a complaint with the Court of Justice. So I guess one thing you could say about GDPR is it's well-intentioned. Maybe over time the edges will be sanded off. They'll get better. You don't know what the consequences are until you try it.
But this is something, Leo, I've thought about this so much. Like how, when you're saying tech policy with government, I think everyone in this room would probably agree we don't want Congress like setting the standards with that. And maybe
but if not Congress, who?
I don't. Maybe the answer is for certain things you bring in, like the certification board. Like USB is the standard that's worked pretty well. Maybe the answer is to empower more standards boards, and then the civil process holds people to complying with it.
Has said something like this. He said there should be courts for these specific issues, like a specially dedicated courts to
that makes a lot of
adjudicate
sense. Yeah, you have this in biotech, so it makes a lot of sense
Privacy
to me.
court.
Oh, I'd love to see that.
Yeah.
I think part of it is the problem is some of these companies are so large and the problems are scaling so large is you cannot really have enough judges to deal with, say, Facebook and privacy or Google and privacy.
Well, that's why it'd be almost entirely separate court with separate judges who...
No, I mean that you'd still need a
big court.
Pretty big damn court.
Do you want to talk about, this is a big one, I don't know if we're going to have time, Julian Assange.
Oof.
So this is a challenging one because no one likes Julian Assange. And apparently he considers himself a Christ-like figure. This is the picture of him being dragged away from the Ecuadorian embassy for, among other things, letting his cat poop all over the place.
Did we find out if his cat is okay? That's very important to me.
I'll check.
Okay.
The issue is now the U.S. government is going to indict under the Espionage Act. And whether you like Julian Assange or not, and honestly, early on, I was rooting for him when WikiLeaks released the drone strikes that killed journalists and innocent civilians. That was an eye-opener, and I think they did a service. He's being indicted now, though, and the original charges from the U.S. government were for helping Chelsea Manning, or not even helping, offering in a chat to help Chelsea Manning hack the Defense Department. The new charges are an expanded indictment obtained by the Trump administration that the Espionage Act is extremely broad. 17 counts of violating the Espionage Act. And this is where it's problematic, for obtaining and publishing secret military and diplomatic documents in 2010.
Right.
That is, by the way, something journalists do all the time.
Of course. Pentagon Papers.
I was going to say, Daniel Ellsberg has done some pretty interesting interviews on this where he basically says, this is bad.
Yeah.
And
Obama's administration declined to do this. They thought about it. They wanted to. They hate him.
Right.
But they said, you know what? The risk to the First Amendment is too great. We can't do it.
Yeah. I mean, in my opinion, if you want to bring a case against Assange, if you have evidence that he or people in his employ were directly responsible for hacking attempts on the United States, that is more valid to me. Right. But like it or not, WikiLeaks is a publisher. And this is an attack on the First Amendment. So I think there is a case to be found here that I could feel good about. This is not it.
Jamil Jaffer of the Knight First Amendment Institute at Columbia University says, this is the New York Times, the charges rely almost entirely on conduct that investigative journalists engage in every day.
Yep.
This indictment should be understood as a frontal attack on press freedom.
Yep.
Governments don't like leakers.
Nope.
And I understand why.
Yep.
But the First Amendment protects journalists who publish those leaks.
Yeah, and be honest, though, the Obama administration was as harder
absolutely
than almost anybody we've seen in decades on whistleblowers and leakers. But even they declined to go this far. It's interesting because there's a great film that came out last year, The Post, which is about the Washington Post, and the publisher and the editor and the reporters and the story and the court case. And it's really interesting when you look at this because there's a great moment with the lawyer shows up for the Post and he looks like he's 12, in a sort of shiny all-American kind of Midwestern way, and the editor for the Post is kind of like, you're our counsel, but he's dealing with these arguments like, when the Washington Post have published details of the D-Day invasion on the day before the advance, he's like, we're talking about a historical survey and looking at information going back decades, and it was horrifying, when you start looking at what the Pentagon Papers leaked, you start realizing that just everybody knew everything was screwed over there.
Yeah.
And then tens of thousands of more people died.
Yeah.
Because there was
you could
no
make the argument the Pentagon Papers saved lives by bringing a quick end to the war. Or at least a change in the American attitudes towards the war.
I'm very sympathetic to the military in particular, wanting to safeguard that information. Leo, earlier in the show, you mentioned that we don't want to compromise sources and methods by our intelligence agencies. That is utterly valid, but these things are a balance, and this is just a very extreme act.
We'll watch this with interest. One of the reasons the Obama administration did not pursue it is they were concerned about being overturned by the Supreme Court, by a court, because of the First Amendment. So obviously, if this prosecution goes forward, first he's going to have to be extradited. Yeah. I wonder, because the British law prohibits extradition if additional charges are filed. Yeah. So, in other words, the U.S. could extradite based on the initial charge, but if they start to pile on charges, apparently, I read British law says, we're not going to extradite him then. So this may affect that as well. Of course, Assange's lawyers say that he's being charged with a crime for encouraging sources to provide him truthful information and publishing that information. And so any fig leaf that this was about hacking is now gone.
Yeah. This is going to get really awkward.
I agree.
Yeah, and it's going to go on for a while, I think.
It's going to be terrible having to defend this guy because he's so bad. Oh.
As long as he doesn't bring his cat to court,
There we go.
I think we'll be okay.
Yep.
Boy, there's so much more, and we're just running short on time here.
Should we end on is there a positive note to end on?
Oh, yeah. The World Health Organization has said that gaming disorder is a
I'm looking for water
illness.
skiing squirrels here.
Did you see I really thought this was interesting.
This is so interesting.
This is now using these AI networks and generative adversarial networks, or GAN.
Yep.
And so in the past, we've seen, of course, deep fakes and the ability to take a picture of somebody and make it look like they're doing something else.
Right.
But this research is very interesting. It's from Samsung, taking a single still image. I'll turn off this bad Samsung music. Taking a single still image and using another image to actually make for instance, the Mona Lisa talk. Let me see if I can.
Oh, that was the best one.
Wasn't that amazing? Let me see if I can.
And I don't know if I find this comforting or relaxing.
Well, we know it's coming. Okay, you don't like this one either, huh?
No. I still want to see
the world is full of terrible
from
things.
From a technology
Patrick.
perspective, it's deeply fascinating, but it's also, in the context of what's going on in terms of elections and also, just the pure teenage misapplication possibilities for this is awe-inspiring.
Facebook scrambles for middle ground. Oh, yeah, what about that?
This is not an AI.
No, all you had to do is take a video of Nancy Pelosi, slow it down 50%. She sounds drunk and slurring. Yep. But you could do that with me, too.
Maybe they can fix the Sonic movie with this.
There you go. There's the story we were looking for coming up. The Sonic movie. What weird, devilish mischief is afoot. That's coming up. At first, a word from Capterra. Capterra is the way to find business software. How many people, this is the story of my life. I'd go to a new company. I remember going to a radio station in San Francisco. This is in 1984. I was the new music director, and they said, we generate our playlists for our DJs using this PDP 10 or 11 with a giant 8-inch floppy. And they said, here, you just put the floppy in, you close the door, the head on the drive would go clonk, loud, and then it had a teletype, one of those old dot matrix things that go and print out a playlist. For some reason, within a few days, that 8-inch floppy stopped working. I don't know what happened, and we bought a PC. Thank you very much. Business software is notoriously bad. Truth, are you running Windows XP, IE8, so that you can run that very important line of business software that the boss's nephew's neighbor wrote when he was in high school, but now he's left and we haven't seen him in 20 years, but the software, that's all we got? Capterra. There is great business software out there for every possible business. CRM. We're actually looking right now using Capterra at new CRM solutions. IT project management, e-commerce, link management tools, web conferencing, or yoga studio management or veterinary business management. There are 900,000 reviews on here, 700 categories, thousands of products, and the best thing is you can filter it down. You pick the category, filter it down, saying, I want only the best reviews. It's got to be a web application or a local application. I want it to be able to take care of this many customers. Whatever it is that you need, filter the results, compare them side by side up to 4 at a time. They'll even show you a list of related categories for further options. And then read the reviews. There are 1,000 new reviews every single day by verified users. Capterra is great about making sure those reviews come from people actually using the software. So you can actually find a program for you and read the reviews and know it's right. No more Google search. No more calling Joe in accounting. No matter what kind of software your business needs, Capterra makes it easy to discover the right solution fast. And once you find that perfect software, please leave a review, because share your knowledge with other buyers. That's what makes Capterra so incredible. Here's the best part. I left out the best part. It's free. Free, not freemium, not later they'll charge you, nothing. Millions of people use Capterra to find the best business software for their business. You should too. Capterra.com/twit. CAPTERRA. Capterra.com/twit. Thank them for their support. Use that URL. That's a way of showing them you like our show. We appreciate that. Capterra is software selection simplified. Capterra.com/twit. Maybe they should use some of this GAN AI on Sonic the Hedgehog. So what was it? Was it a tweet? How did we see this image of Sonic? It was ugly as sin, right? Not the.
That's from the trailer.
Yeah, yeah. Was it from the trailer?
Yeah,
it's the trailer.
That's the actual trailer.
The trailer came out and the internet exploded.
Yeah,
they said
Reddit went wild.
We're getting nightmares. Talk about PTSD. Now, didn't furry Pikachu cause the same kind of reaction?
No,
not in the same way. No,
furry Pikachu.
Yeah,
people love furry Pikachu.
Don't
There's
you be
something
hating
I'm
on
just not
furry
going to be able to
Pikachu.
get out of my head for the rest of the day.
right.
All right,
People
well,
love furry Pikachu, especially south of Market.
Let's watch the. This is the trailer that gave people nightmares. So, I love Sonic. Grew up playing Sega. Is that Paunch?
That's the dude from Westworld.
Oh, shoot. He looks kind of like Paunch. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I thought that was Chips all over again. So, well, let's get to the Sonic part. He's just going to run and
What's
stuff.
coming up? Yeah.
Is it coming up?
He
He looks like Slender Man. That's horrible.
Oh, it gets worse.
Okay. So, for once, the movie studios listen to the internet. They have put this movie on hold for at least 3 months so that Sonic can be fixed. The release date was originally November.
Yep. They pushed it 3 months.
Now, I have to say, normally your prestige films come out around Christmas time because that way your Academy Award chances are better. And usually when a movie comes out like a week or after the Oscars, you kind of admitting, no, it's a turkey. They moved the date to February 14th. I think this is basically saying, yeah, we're sorry.
I'm sorry. Did you think a movie based on Sonic the Hedgehog really had a chance at
Didn't
Cannes?
the Pikachu Detective Pikachu did
was
well.
solid. It was solid.
I'm not saying Detective Pikachu did. I'm saying that, but okay.
Oscar.
What am I saying? Like the idea of a movie based on Pikachu doing, being critically reviewed well is also difficult.
Yeah, they're not going to
imagine.
win an Oscar for that either.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, Jim Carrey is total Jim Carrey
Yes.
and being Dr. Robotnik. So, it's
bad.
got good stuff in the trailer. It just doesn't look anything like Sonic.
But Pikachu didn't either. I mean, I never saw a furry Pikachu. Right?
I guess I see that and I just see a fur simulation on a skeletal mesh. And I don't know.
We should also mention, this is another happy story. Elon Musk, we've been giving him a lot of trouble for his cray-cray stuff that he says, including last month saying that next year there'd be 30,000 self-driving Teslas on the road. Really? Not worse than that, operating like Uber as ride shares.
Right.
So that a Tesla owner, which only, he only uses his Tesla on average 2 hours a day, so there's 22 hours of unused time, would flip a switch and say, go ahead, go out, little Tesla.
Wear
make
out
money.
your Tesla faster so I can sell more.
But you make 30,000 a year, letting
Wearing
people,
out your $100,000 car
well, in 3 years you make your money back.
and buy a new car.
I am not going to let the general public drive my car. Have you ever rented a Turo and seen what the general public does
So
to
the
sports
Turo
cars?
was a cool idea, which was that
I
you
love
could
it.
do that.
I love
right?
it.
And you're a car person.
Oh, yeah, I love them. Every time I
But
go to a new
Turos are like
city-
in bad shape when you get in them.
It's always so. I know you disagree with me on this. But I'm a Porsche fan.
You're an
and,
ice girl. I know. Although
no.
I want that Taycan.
Oh, it's great. It's
Okay.
great. It looks
All
so good. I will buy the Boxster the second they put that out.
Okay, electric Boxster.
But it's like if you look at the cars on Turo, they will get a beautiful Porsche Boxster and they will just destroy it and you'll get in. The vents are falling off and the
Yeah, 'cause
clutch doesn't work well.
We know this. Renters
Yeah.
don't treat the property with
No,
the same
of
care that the
course
owner
not.
does. It's just the way it is.
Right.
So anyway, I wanted to give Elon credit because we give him a lot of,
This is good.
but he has done something once again. SpaceX launched. I don't know if you watched this on Friday. I did. It was so exciting.
cool.
Yeah, it was.
This is at Cape Canaveral. I would love to go to a night launch because it's so beautiful.
Oh, it's great.
They had a couple of scrubbed launches, but round about 7:30 p.m. Pacific, they were able to launch Starlink, the Falcon 9. And here's what Starlink is going to do. They want to place 12,000 satellites all over the world to provide high-speed gigabit, low latency, because it's in low Earth orbit, internet to every corner of the planet.
That part kind of freaks me out.
Well, yeah.
I like being able to go places and have no internet.
Well, too bad, Patrick. I want to do the podcast from a boat. And it looks like I might be able to.
I am deeply fascinated by this, and I've read up enough of it to be like, okay, it's going to be less of a latency issue. I'm really curious to see what kind of bandwidth they'll be able to deliver.
Yep.
It's also funny with the idea that you may have to go to northern Nevada, where the population is below like 1 person per square mile to get the badass bandwidth. But it's fascinating.
I bet we'll get.
I do want to say
to every user on the satellite.
I think,
well, there's 12,000 of them. Well, of course, there's a lot. Like
how many people are there?
Several billion.
Yeah.
Okay. Never mind.
Being here in a major city, or outside a major city, I think you can really take for granted that a lot of the United States still does not have access to decent internet.
It's a big problem.
Even in Massachusetts, people think of us as a rich, advanced state. There are huge portions of the state where people are still on dial-up.
No, I remember in the early days of mapping apps on phones, I was like, I told someone, I'm like, I really need an app that stores all the data locally. And I was basically told that, like, I live in California, what is my damage? I'm like, I drive 15 minutes north of my house, so I'm still in San Francisco, and I don't have network access. It's still like that in huge parts of it. And that's even without getting into the really empty parts of the country.
Sure. But it's also worth saying Tesla's a long history of promising the moon, and then they put it out. We still don't have that solar tiles on our house or the energy wall. Like, we got some work to do on that.
Yeah. And Consumer Reports just
dinged. They're selling the energy wall.
Oh, are they? Did they finally get that
actually,
out?
I could get one. They called me.
Oh, did I miss that?
Yeah.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, they call me. It's basically, you know what it is. It's just the Tesla battery pack on your wall.
Yep. I'd buy it. That sounds great.
I would love to have it. You keep we have solar panels. We charge up the energy wall at night. We'd run off that.
Put it in a concrete fence not attached to my house and bury cable.
Are you afraid it's going to explode?
I'm just saying. All it takes is, one.
When have batteries ever exploded?
Let me tell you a story about a phone.
Driving his Model X around. By the way, Consumer Reports did ding the autopilot. Apparently, Elon really wants to get to the point where the cars, you just say go and they drive. Mm. And one of the key features would be the ability to change lanes. Consumer Reports said, do not use the new automatic lane changing feature. It's worse than a human driver. It cuts off cars. In some cases, it breaks laws.
Oh, wow.
If you turn it on. And they said, normally we think of these things as driver assist. In this case, this is the driver has to keep an eye on it to make sure it doesn't do the wrong thing. It's not making your life easier.
Oh, my gosh.
So, again, Elon, you win some, you lose some.
I realize I'm in the minority here. I won't even drive a car with an automatic transmission.
You're just weird. You're just weird.
I love to drive. I can't imagine having something
Mr.
like
Stick
this.
Shift Bondi here? What?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's taste. You should listen to him.
I just last year got a manual transmission car again.
Oh, yeah?
And I'm
it's so much work. You're pushing the pedal. You're doing the thing. You got
much better.
It's so much work.
It's great.
So much better.
It's great. It gets you into
We just bought a Chevy Bolt. Doesn't even have there's really 2 gears, forward and backward. I love it. It's great. That's the best. That's how it should be.
But do the doors dance?
No, it doesn't have dancing doors. But it's only, on the bright side, it's only $30,000. I could buy 4 bolts for what I paid for my Model X. It's all right. The Model X goes back in a couple of months. And
I was looking for it in the parking lot. Didn't see it.
It's not there. That bright blue electric
Bolt
vehicle.
Yeah.
It's a Bolt.
Is that it? Wow.
All electric Bolt.
It's charming.
Bolt. There's so many more things to talk about. I wanted to get all of this stuff in.
And all the good ones.
Did I get all the good ones? Are you sure?
Let me check.
Let's check. To see.
WWDC coming on June 3rd.
June 3rd.
My son will not be happy with me if I don't make you do the loot box story.
Oh, yeah. This is a great story.
Actually, I want Brianna's comment on this. The Senate.
My son is afraid that the mobile gaming, all mobile gaming developers will go out of business.
It's a legit worry, yeah.
So, Josh Hawley passed or filed legislation on Thursday, the Protecting Children from Abusive Games Act, or PGAGA. No, that's not very good. It would prohibit game developers from adding both loot boxes and pay-to-win microtransactions to a game targeted to those 18 or younger, or games where the game makers know those under 18 are playing. So that's pretty much every game, right? Yeah. You can't say, oh, yeah, this only 19-year-olds will play this one. Ed Markey from your home state.
He's a good guy.
He's actually a great senator.
Yeah,
Dick Blumenthal from Connecticut, also a good senator, also sponsoring the bill. Hawley said, he's a Republican from Missouri, only the addiction economy could produce a business model that relies on placing a casino in the hands of every child in America with the goal of getting them desperately hooked. I can't say I disagree. Loot boxes, what's a loot box?
Well, it's a roulette wheel, right? So if you are playing a game, say Fortnite, and you want a particular skin, you've got to keep playing or you need to pay money until you get the item that you want. It shows up in a loot box and then you have it. Sometimes the things in a loot box are cosmetic, like a cool costume. Sometimes they break the game or it's pay to win. So,
But the key is that it's random.
It's random.
You don't know what you're going to buy.
Correct. Exactly.
So it's gambling in the sense that it's going to cost you $5 or $10. What?
Yeah.
Turn on your microphone.
It's not on. Oh, sorry. You might get it or you might not.
Right.
Basically,
Yeah.
is the
Oh,
loot
so the
box
loot
thing.
box isn't like a box and it's like a grab bag where you don't know what's in
No,
it.
it's like a guy.
They say you could get.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
They're very popular in gotcha games, where they're like kind of like Pokemon. You're collecting all these animals, and so you get an egg that will hatch an animal, and it might be a good animal or it might be a bad animal.
Right.
But you don't pay for it in Pokemon Go, whereas you would be these loot boxes.
So I can.
So it's
I
not
can,
a. It's not. It's a bill. It's not even going to committee yet. There, of course, Congress is in recess until next month. But what do you think?
Well, I can really see both sides of this. You know, the truth is that the game industry has really moved away from the point where you pay $60 for a game and you own that game and you just play that game. There's DLC. In our industry, is very, very dependent on this additional revenue.
Fortnite was free to play, but Tim Sweeney made $7 billion last year.
Loot boxes, absolutely. So it is a model that has really helped our industry. And I also think it's worth saying it has been the most brutal year for the game industry.
Really?
We lost Telltale. Blizzard laid off a ton of people. Half the people I know in the industry are out of work. It has really been a rough year.
I have to say, though, having been here for a few decades, there have been cycles like this before.
Of course.
And it's partly because the video game industry is hit-driven, right? Like the movie industry.
Right.
They make a lot of games. They're expensive to make. They're gambling. There'll be hits. Most of them are not.
Right.
So those people lose their jobs, and then some people, like Epic, get big wins.
Sure. Well, in this particular case, they figured out a free-to-play mechanic that really drove growth and exploded revenues, and they're kind of expecting that growth to go on forever. This is the downside to this. If I am an adult and I play something like Final Fantasy, A New Realm, which is the most egregious pay-to-win game you will ever play in your entire life. I know people that have spent $40,000 on that game.
What?
I do. I swear.
Adults.
Adults.
Yeah.
If an adult wants to make that bad choice,
That's their bad choice.
That's their bad choice, just like going to Vegas.
Most states restrict gambling. That's changing very rapidly thanks to the lottery. Isn't it parents' jobs to keep their kids from doing this? I mean, it's not a hard thing to keep your kid from buying loot boxes.
It's very hard. It's very hard.
Why is it hard? You just don't give them purchase access. How are they buying stuff?
Think of all the things as a parent you were able to prevent your children from doing.
Well, the one thing is don't give them the gosh darn credit card.
Okay, so they're not going to go down to the supermarket, the 7-Eleven, the Home Depot, or any other thing with an end cap that allows them to turn their cash into a credit card? I mean,
well, they got their allowance. They can spend it.
I've raised a couple of creative little problem solvers, so I'm pretty sure at some point, if they need to figure out how to get credit card access, my little campers are going to trot down and
I think
put
loot
2 + 2
boxes are a
together.
terrible thing. I don't think we should pass a federal law restricting loot boxes.
This is the middle ground I would like to see. If you're going to have loot box mechanics in the game, I think you should have to publish the odds.
There you go.
On getting
That's
certain
simple.
things, just like you do in Vegas with slot machines.
Right.
That makes
and you
sense.
have a little warning at the bottom with a number for the Game Addicts hotline.
And I would like to point out just exactly how well that's done in limiting the amount of slot. But I agree with you. I'm being snarky.
Everybody's got a family
It's amazing.
member
Like the
who
pay to play.
spent fortunes on the ponies at
Absolutely.
Santa Anita or the Greyhounds.
Yeah.
I would say about this, though, the reason that's important is because you literally have game developers that sit there and they have all the information, how often you log in, what you want to do. They will adjust the odds on that.
They have
Which is
machines.
exactly the people that have the most control in Las Vegas casinos are the ones that manipulate the slot machines because that's where most of the revenue comes from.
Of course, right.
And it's like I could have I could set up doing there's the word for the people that do the statistics for insurance companies. Like all of those people migrate actuaries, all the actuaries, the really insane ones, all migrated to casinos. But I'm with you. But it's also crazy when you think like people have paid. Like I think pay to win games are kind of a nightmare in general. It kind of ruins gaming.
I agree. And Apple's with its Arcade Plus trying to create a new economy for games.
Right.
I think there are responsible people. Stadia might be a solution as well. The Google solution. There are responsible people trying to fix this.
I don't know if Google's
But I don't
trying to
think we
fix
should
it. I just think
legislate
they're trying to get away around
Yeah,
Steam.
in fact, I would
and a
argue
console.
Stadia is going to accelerate this
Is it?
because you're not paying for it, so it's going to increase
What's the revenue
those kinds
source?
of
They need a revenue
mechanics.
source. We need a revenue source.
Well, you are paying because you'll probably have a monthly subscription, which will be divvied up.
That's fair. That's
I mean, Microsoft has a similar thing with Game Pass. I mean, this is Sony does the same thing.
But I'll be honest with you. Like at this point, the number of games on my phone I've stopped playing because I paid for a game and there's still advertisements.
Yep.
That at this point is just there's so much about game developers need to make money. They can't make enough money. Is it they can't make enough money off a single sale, or is it just too lucrative to not do the additional stuff?
Look, most people like Pokemon Go. I've probably spent a couple $100 playing Pokemon Go,
So
but I
is
got
my husband.
at least that much value out of it over 3 years. I really enjoyed the game. I don't feel like they extorted money out of me. I paid for things that made sense strategically. I got to level 40. I've deleted the game now because I did, and that was
you got to level 40.
Well, once you get to that's the highest level. Once you're
No, I know.
It's like, what's the point?
That's impressive.
Tell Frank I'm at 40.
He'd be very jealous.
Mic
Wow.
But as soon as Harry Potter Wizards Unite comes out, see, I'm clearing the deck. I'm clearing the deck because I'm ready, and I will spend.
Should I play you
we're
hitting
adults.
level 40?
But
Should I play you hitting level 40? We've got a promo that's got that.
Oh, I forgot. Let's watch. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
On Twitch.
We got to play a video.
Okay.
I am now level 40.
Congratulations, Leo. Now you've got to encase that phone in a block of lucite with like enough room for the power cord so you just keep it as a monument.
Security Now.
Windows XP, Leo, not Windows 8, not Windows 7, was patched last week. So you know something is worrying Microsoft deeply. While we have observed no exploitation of this vulnerability, this is Microsoft saying it is highly likely that malicious actors will write an exploit for this vulnerability. And now I have to say that I love the fact that the world is finally sitting up and taking sober responsibility for these sorts of problems.
All about Android.
Lenovo shared a video at a press event to show off renders of the as yet unannounced folding Moto Razr phone.
What are you gaining from this fold?
We are returning to the ability to effectively hang up angrily on someone.
Yes.
Right? Which ever since the emergence of the smartphone, you've never been able to go, fine, goodbye.
Yes.
Right? Now I can close that foldable phone and hang up on someone that I'm angry at.
Oh, that was so satisfying to do that.
Twit. You heard me.
That's the great Jim Cutler, our VO guy. He's great. Yeah, but once I got to level 40, they didn't show that. I deleted it. So I'm done.
Did you sell that on Perfect Pokemon?
No, I didn't.
What is it? Pokemon Pros. You can sell that account and people will buy it for $247.
What?
I swear to God. I swear to God.
deleted it. What a fool
You
am
still have
I.
your account.
Oh, yeah. But it's my Google account. I'm not selling you my Google account. The hell with that. It's worth more than $247.
I'll see you in the parking lot. We'll do a deal.
Ask Frank what he's willing to pay. No, but the point was, before the promo, the point was, I'd be sad if I couldn't play some of those games because it was governmentally regulated. I'd be sad if I couldn't drink. Look how well that went when we had prohibition. Have parents do their job and maybe put the odds on, but I don't think we should ban that kind of stuff. I'm sorry.
I think our industry could do a better job of informing parents about the tools that exist to kind of limit these things there. And I think we failed. There are tools, but we're not doing well at communicating about them.
Because it's bad for the bottom line in some cases.
Right. Yeah.
And by the way, I wasn't joking when I said the World Health Organization has made gaming disorder a recognized illness. Classification will come effect January 1st, 2022. So get as much gaming in as you can over the next 2 years. Ladies and gentlemen, what fun having Brianna Wu visit us in studio. Good luck. When's the primary?
September 20th. Secretary of State finally put that out. It's next year.
And what's the website to support you?
You can go to supportbrianna.com. We were talking about call time earlier.
Yeah.
You know what the number one people that donate to my campaign are, because we've done analytics on this, are people that watch your show and support our campaign.
All right, Twit Army, assemble. $5, it's all I ask. Brianna Wu for Congress, because don't you want somebody this smart sitting in Congress? And you don't have to be from Massachusetts 8th District, no?
You don't.
But if you are, vote and vote often come September for Brianna Wu. All the best. It's great to see you.
Thank you.
Your brain is so big. So big. Patrick Norton, it's not the only thing is your brain is big. Everything about you is large. Larger. I'm making this a compliment.
You should just walk away from this.
Hi,
I host This Week in Computer Hardware with Sebastian Peak, Twit's weekly show that aims to bring you the most useful and helpful hardware news. And I also do AV Excel.
Everything
that wonderful
about you is bigger than life.
Okay, that's good.
Right?
That wasn't where you were.
That was where I was headed.
Okay. But you were sort of
a
ambling
long way
about.
around.
There was a hole and a cliff, and
Love
we
you,
were all
Patrick.
fearing.
This is about to be a different show.
Yes. I love you, man. Patrick Norton, This Week in Computer Hardware. Of course, techthing.com. Support him because you do this on Patreon. And
Yes.
This is the kind of thing that we also really want to support. Is Patrick and his great shows. Thank you, Patrick.
If I support you on Patreon, will you look at my Oculus PC and tell me how to upgrade that?
Absolutely.
Like go through all the...
You don't even have to support. Just email.
All
There
right.
it is.
Tweet
1
at
+
me.
7.
You seem like you know more about processors than I do. So.
He knows everything.
Yes, but I can't code my way out of a paper bag.
Just one tip. If he comes to the house with a sledgehammer, do not let him in.
Okay.
Just saying.
Okay. Good advice for anyone.
Good advice. Yeah, really, basically.
Especially if you have horsehair plaster.
Yes.
Hey, look, Leo, if I show up at your door with a sledgehammer, it's probably because you did something.
Uh-oh. Lock the door. Here comes Norton. Our show appears on the Twit Network every Sunday. Actually, we do it live. You're invited to join us live right after the radio show. So it's around 2:15, 2:30 p.m. Pacific. Let's make it 2:30 Pacific, 5:30 Eastern Time. That way I can do the math. 21:30 UTC. You can watch or listen live at twit.tv/live. If you do that, be in the chat room, irc.twit.tv. That's where all the other people watching and listening live are hanging out. A bright bunch in there. We love the chat room. You can also get on-demand versions of everything we do in your podcatcher. Easiest thing to do would be go to the website, twit.tv, download the show you want, or click one of those buttons at the bottom there and add it to your favorite podcast application. That way you get it automatically the minute it's available. If you want to be in the studio audience, we had a great studio audience today from all over the world, Australia and New Jersey and St. Louis and Nashville and Pomona. So thank you all for being here. Phoenix, too. If you want to be in studio, just email tickets at twit.tv because every once in a while I get a story. We came, but you weren't there and they didn't let us in and we just took a picture outside. If you email, we'll let you know if we're open because sometimes we're closed for the holiday stuff like that. We're going to be closed tomorrow because of Memorial Day. I hope you have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. I hope you celebrate by remembering your loved ones who served our nation in the best way possible. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you next time. Another Twit is in the can.
This is amazing.
Bye-bye.
on the Twit.